I'm awesome.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah. Hey there. Welcome to Critical African Thinkers, a place where nothing escapes scrutiny. Here we examine everything under the microscope of logic to determine or ascertain that which is factual and most logically consistent. So we host intellectual discussions to broaden our mind to get more insights about things that are happening around the world. So today I will be having a discussion with Vincent Smith. He's a black man currently in the United States of America, and he has had the unique experience of living in three continents, in Africa, in Europe, and in America. So he has certain perspectives in terms of how the black man is treated on those three continents. And I want to find out from him. I want to understand the perception of the black man in these three continents. I want to find out the unique challenges of the black man in these three continents. I want to find out the advantages or the opportunities that are present in these three continents for the black man, and possibly which of these three continents is most favorable to the black man. So, Vincent, welcome to the live stream.
Right, thank you, thank you.
Yeah, how are you doing today?
I'm fine, thank you very much. And you?
I'm good. I'm good.
Splendid.
Yeah. So let's get into this. Just tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm 22, just recently turned 22. Currently in the university, studying information technology. Eventually my goal is to become an airline pilot. Yeah, I'm from London, and yeah.
Oh, that's impressive. At that age, you seem to be doing very well for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say so, yeah, but I'm currently still in my journey to getting there, so I wouldn't say I'm done well yet till I've reached there. So yeah.
Oh, okay. So tell me a little bit about your childhood, where you were born, and what the experiences were.
Yeah, so I was born in Florida in the USA, around when I was 6 weeks old. We moved um to the UK, right? I was That's essentially where I was raised. I have lived in Nigeria 2 years as a child, very in my infant years. When I was around 3, 4, that's when I started officially living in the UK. Till when I was around 18, and I moved 17, 18, yeah. So when I moved to here to Florida to pursue higher education. Yeah,
So most of your time has been spent in the UK.
that's correct. Yes, yes. My
Mhm.
formative years. Yeah.
How many how long did you stay in Nigeria for?
Like 2 years, really, at
Two
most. Yeah,
years.
yeah. I
Two
can't even
years.
remember. It was shortly before primary school officially starts. So I guess it's like reception, kindergarten. Is that sort? Yeah, yeah. Yeah, as babies. So
So
I
you
never.
had some education, very little education in Nigeria.
That's great. Yes, all my education, primary, secondary, all the way to A levels, is done was done in the UK. Yeah,
Okay. So do you come to Nigeria often? I mean,
every year. Yep, every other year at least. I was there last year. In early January, and then I was also in the UK as well. But yeah,
okay.
growing up in the UK, yeah, I every summer or sometimes Christmas, my mum would make sure that we would stay for at least a month, sometimes 2 3 weeks, so we can understand Nigeria, understand the culture, and yeah.
So what fascinates you about Nigerian culture?
um I like how vibrant it is. There's a lot, like the music, the culture, the food. Yeah, I'll say that's my favorite part of Nigerian culture, especially the food. Yeah.
You prefer the food in Nigeria to the ones you get in the UK and in the US?
Well, you have to remember, right? Growing up with a Nigerian mom, right? It was usually what things like rice and stew, right? Pounded yam, yam and beans, jollof rice, on special occasions. And then sometimes I'll have a kebab or fish and chips on the weekend, But yeah, yeah, I did grow up on the Nigerian diet. That's what you're trying to get at,
Um, Good stuff. So do you
right?
still, when you're in the US and in the UK, do you still keep up with those delicacies, or
I
it's
do,
just when you
yeah.
come back to Africa?
No, I do,
Okay,
yeah, yeah, I do, yeah. I
good.
mean, I still live with my parents, so yeah,
Okay.
I have no
So
choice. Hmm.
let's go over to where you spend the most of your time, the
Hmm.
most of your life. You've spent the most of your life in the UK. So
That's correct. Yes.
tell me about your experiences as a black man in the UK.
Well, unlike here in America, where I'm constantly reminded that I'm black, right? In the UK, it was more of a case of being reminded that you're from Nigeria, if that makes sense. Um, that's how most blacks in the UK even identify as well. If you're from Nigeria or Ghana, Jamaica, which were the popular three countries for most blacks in the UK, they will say, "Oh, I'm Nigerian," or "I'm Jamaican," "I'm Ghanaian," and you have to also factor in I was also raised in South London, so yeah, that's how I identified, and most people look like me as well when going to school. So
Okay, so it's your identity was based on your country of origin, not
that's correct.
really the color of your skin.
Yeah, 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 that's correct. Until my last 3 years when we moved to another part of the UK, which I would consider the real side of England, that's where, I was made more aware that I was black. For example, cultural differences, right? In London, obviously most of us that are, first born generations or we're children of immigrants to the UK, right? We have our own enclave. So, most people they still retain their cultural heritage, their identity, if that makes sense. Right. It was predominantly black and Asian. It was like a black Asian immigrant area. So um I was able to, grow up and understand my cultural heritage. But when I moved outside to a place called West Sussex, it was very, very white English area. Um, I barely saw anyone that was black, and just only just very, very few mixed race individuals. And even they too, you could tell they weren't connected to their black side, obviously. So it could get kind of lonely as well. Yeah.
So was there a difference in the way you were treated when you were more in a demographic that looked more like you
Mhm.
as compared to when you moved to a whiter area? Was there a difference?
Well, yeah, even for example, slang, right? In London, we have our own way of speaking. Like, I guess it's more of a black English way of speaking, right? I never really grew up talking like that, but yeah, when I moved to West Sussex, it was very, very English again, right? Some things that they would do, right? For example, like going to the pub, it's not really something that most blacks in London really do like that. Um, just minor things really, if I have to be honest with you. I can't really name off the top of my head, but just for example, you know, even for example, like the way they might sort things out, like the way they might argue, right, is different to versus in London where they would usually result in a physical altercation. They were a bit more patient, if that makes sense. But that's something I found generally with whites. That's the way they do things is just different. But yeah.
So let me understand that. Were they more patient in the whiter areas compared to where you lived originally, where
Yes, they
they
were.
could
Yes,
they were
yes,
more patient?
they certainly were. It wasn't as um, I'm gonna say socially aggressive, if that makes sense, because in South London, right, it's blacks there tend to be more hyper, if I'm gonna use that word, right? The energy is more like you have to be kind of hyper, but with the
Mm.
whites in England, right, they are just more um chill, right, and they're just more mellow, if I'm gonna use that word, yeah. Their daily is just, you take each day at a time. But in London, it's more like a fast pace. I, I can't explain it, but it's like there's more adrenaline. If I'm and also granted, right? It's also in London. It's also in the city as well. So yeah, I guess that's why.
Yeah, you find that kind of energy in Lagos too, where it's fast
Right.
paced, everyone is moving at the speed of light. But when you go to other cities in the country in Nigeria,
Mhm.
time even seems slower. Everybody's chilled and they're taking their time. But in Lagos, everybody's up
Yeah,
and about.
yeah,
4 a.m. in the morning, 5 a.m. in the morning, people are up and
yeah.
about, and the
I
roads
would,
are busy and all
yeah,
that.
yeah. I would say yeah. It was like that as well because West Sussex, I'll say it's more it's a large town area in comparison to London, where it's more of a city vibes, right? Yeah, right. For example, I found things to be just slightly more slower. It wasn't as fast paced. You could, take more of your time. Whereas in London, you have to be more quick. That makes sense. But yeah,
So, in terms of your interactions with people
right,
in Sussex and in South London,
right.
was there any significant difference in the way people treated you in both areas?
No, not really. No, I wouldn't say that. No. Well, actually, no. Yes, I would actually. South London. I guess again, and I've said this time before. I don't know if you've heard, right. I guess it's the way I would articulate myself, or the way I would go about things, right? I guess it wasn't really seen as a Black South London thing. Sorry, excuse me. It was, I was called a word like a neek, which pretty much means like a nerd, or being seen as boring or as an Oreo, right? Um,
Mm.
in comparison, when I moved to West Sussex, I didn't even ever get that word said to me. It was, I fitted in quite well, if I'm going to be honest with you. Um, in the school that I was in West Sussex, I found it to be more easier to navigate my school life out there in West Sussex in comparison to London, where you know um, you kind of had to act a bit more black, or if I'm just going to be honest with you, just slightly a bit more ghetto in terms of behavior. Mm, Yeah.
So, what were there any differences in the attitudes towards education in South London and in Sussex? Were there any difference?
Yeah, in South London, right? eh, I'm gonna just say it, like not many people in general really took education or their GCSEs seriously. It was just kind of seen as a joke, to be honest with you. Like no one really did their homework or did things like that. Whereas I did, and sometimes I'll get laughed at, and I'll just be told, why am I trying to beg? Essentially what they're trying to say is like, why am I trying to outdo everyone? In comparison, when I moved to West Sussex, I never got that type of reception at all. In fact, everyone was pretty much similar to me. It was just more average. No one bullied you for trying to do more, trying to get more out of life. I guess, yeah, I'm gonna put it that way.
That's interesting.
Right.
So, in your demographics, where you had more um, more foreign people, more black people, more people from some other parts of the country,
Mm.
you trying to do your homework, you trying to stand out academically was seen as you trying too much.
Yeah, essentially, it was like looked down on. If I'm going to be honest with you, that's something I found in South London, right? It just wasn't really seen as a cool thing, you know. I remember once or twice I just didn't really bother doing homework because at times I didn't want to face ridicule, right, from my other counterparts. I was just um yes, at times I just kind of got a bit embarrassed because at times I'll say to myself, oh, what's the point of even doing it when no one's going to do it? But being raised by a strict mum who took academics to the extreme, I didn't really have much of a choice, did I? So yeah.
Yeah, Nigerian parents are they're stickler for education. I
Yeah, they are. They
remember,
are. So
I
I'll say that.
remember as
You're going. Go
as
on.
a
Go.
as a kid, I used to be terrible at math,
Oh wait.
primary
Yeah.
school.
Okay.
So every time I get home, once my grades are poor, I would always get a beating from my mom every
Right.
day. It was until one day things began to change, and I think it did help me, because if there was no pushback from my mom trying to get me to better my grades, then probably I wouldn't be where I am today. So Nigerian
Right.
parents have that, they have that really try to push you in terms of education. But I want to understand
Mm-hmm.
why why that kind of attitude was prevalent in that community where you grew up. Why were people seeing
Mm-hmm.
academic achievement as you trying too much, whereas when you went to the much wider area, it was the norm?
I think it's kind of obvious, right? Again, in because it was in Croydon, right? I didn't live exactly in Croydon. I lived in Purley, which is just outside of Croydon. It's more of like I guess a white upper middle class type area. But I went to school in in a typical South London school, which is more located in the lower socioeconomic environment, right? Obviously, as you can imagine, due to them being lower in the socioeconomic totem pole, it's kind of normal as to why they wouldn't want to aspire more in life, if that makes sense. Like they just don't really have ambition, and I guess their parents, there's just not they don't have the drive to succeed. Only a few others like myself kind of had a similar mindset, and they also had a similar background to me as well. In general, I'll say most no, they aren't really aspiring to do more. But again, I will say it's due to the environment. You know? Yeah.
So, well, it may be due to the environment, but it does seem to me that those who are more socio-economically disadvantaged should be the ones who would seek more to better their standing in life, and
Mm,
for them to, just shelve it and be comfortable with the way they live. It
right.
beats my imagination. Seriously, beats my imagination. So, let's talk more about your experiences in Sussex.
Okay. Yeah.
So, um, go ahead. Tell me about your experiences in Sussex.
Again, coming from a place that was predominantly POC, people of color, or BAME as we call it, right? Black,
Mm,
Asian, mixed, ethnic, right? From that type of environment or community to a predominant typical white British area. I'm just gonna it was kind of a bit of a shock in the sense that not seeing many POC people kind of took a while. Actually took me like 3 to 6 months to get used to. I remember for especially on the weekends, right? If I'd go out for like 2 days, I wouldn't see anyone, well, apart from obviously at home. But going out, if I might take a walk to the park, or just take a
mm,
walk to the shopping center, right? Just only
mm,
seeing just white people everywhere. um it was kind of a struggle. I kind of struggled getting used to that. And I remember there were times I would just take the train to London just so I could just see people of color, like see Asians, black, mixed people, because I just need just to see more diversity, if that makes sense. I
mm,
kind of felt it was lacking in flavor, West Sussex, because it was a very typical white British, if I'm going to be honest with you, just quite basic, just again, right, they're very average,
mm,
just the way just the way they see life in comparison to London, where it's more flavorful. You see so many cultures, right? You see the Jamaican, the Nigerian, the Ghanaian, the Indian culture,
yeah.
other minorities as well. It's a typical mixing pot, right? And also, granted, right, in London, the white people in London, they are different to the ones in West Sussex. And what I mean by that is they are used to seeing people of color, and they even act or imitate, people of color
Mm,
in London. So, they would even try and speak in, like, for example, a Jamaican slang, or sometimes they would use a Nigerian slang.
mm.
I've heard a few of them use some Nigerian phrases like, I am not Oyinbo. Can you imagine, right? Which essentially means I'm not white. Yeah, exactly. So I was kind of used to those type of white people, the ones that try to act as if they were black, right? Versus
Yeah.
when I went to West Sussex, right? It's again typical white British, right? It was just I'm sorry, it's just because it just up till today I still, laugh at what I experienced. Just the, the difference in the environments. It was just it was a lot, even the way they would use their slang was slightly a bit more Cockney sounding
Mm,
by Sussex versus in London where it's more of a urban um type. But yeah. Oh, I see
yeah,
some questions in the chat room, but yeah.
yeah,
That's pretty much my experience there. But yeah.
yeah. We no, even in Nigeria, there's a similar trend. I mean, if you go to places like Delta State, where I'm from, and Edo State, where you're from, you'll
Right,
find
right.
that the slang, the behavior, the courage,
Oh,
it's
is that
more
really? Oh,
there's really
okay.
more flavor, there's more hype, there's more attitude, to the way people act and behave as
Mhm.
compared to some other parts of the country. So
Well, oh, really?
there
Oh,
are,
because every time I'm in Nigeria, right, it just
yeah,
doesn't matter whether you're Igbo or from Edo State or
mm,
or Robo or Yoruba. It doesn't really make a difference because to me, I just see it as all the same. Maybe essentially, right. I wasn't raised in Nigeria, so I
yeah,
can't differences. But
you really can't pick
right,
out those, you
exactly,
really
and
can't pick out those nuances.
right, and also at times, right, obviously, growing up in London, right, I've said, sometimes we would go to Nigerian functions. My mum will take me, when a friend of hers is having a birthday party or one of her friends' children are having a wedding, right? People from different tribes in Nigeria, and it just all seemed the same to me. So I never really noticed the difference. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's true. You may not notice it because you obviously are not so used to the culture. But those of us here, we can, like, I can listen to people speak and I can almost tell you where they're from, different
No,
parts of the country,
I
just
was,
by listening to them speak. I can
yeah,
say, okay, this person is from this part of the country. This person
yeah.
is from that part of the country.
I will say though that every time I'm in Nigeria, right, sometimes like gate man or bodyguard, right? They're from the north. They're Hausa, right? I can tell because
Yeah.
they have more of a. Well, I don't mean to sound ignorant, but I kind of call it more of a Muslim accent. I kind of just because the way they sound is more like you can tell that it's more like Arabic sounding, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah. Most of them are actually from the north of the country, so um, their accent is kind of distinct, so it's easy to tell someone who is from the north
right,
of the country.
yeah,
As while those of us from the south, we almost all sound the same, but there are still distinctions.
right,
If you are familiar with it and if you listen closely, you'd be able
right.
to tell. So
Mm-hmm.
let me go back to Sussex. Now,
Yeah, sure.
you said at school in Sussex, you felt the pressure wasn't there to not perform as it was in South London. So
Right, it was just more right. So in West Sussex, right, it was
mm,
I never got any flack from other classmates to not do homework or if you did well. In fact, to be honest, people would be like, wow, that's really good. They will clap for you, right? Most people would get grades like a grade B or a grade C. Really, it was just average, really. And if you
yeah,
got the grade A or grade A star, right, it was like everyone would clap for you and be, wow, you're very brainy, aren't you? You know,
mm,
yeah, it was even to be honest, you were kind of seen almost like a celebrity in the classroom, right? So versus
wow,
when I was in, the UK, when I was in my general classes, it wasn't really seen like that. Now, granted, right, when I was in London and I was in, for example, studying maths, when I was in maths or English or science, right, you have
yeah,
different sets. There were like 8 sets. So set one, two, and three, which were like the top three, where usually the people that are scoring grade B, grade A, they were usually in those sets.
mm,
And the ones that obviously were poor performing quite bad, right? They were towards the lower end. Obviously I was in one and for maths, two for English, and yeah, one again for science. So I never really got that because in those classes, they were similar to me. But in other classes, like for example, it could be religion, when I was doing language or design technology, Yeah, other members, they would just, be poking fun at me and saying, "Oh, well, you don't have to always be scoring A, like try and get a grade D like us, or try and just
Mm,
get C." So, at times I even felt a bit bad for scoring high. So sometimes I would try and get a grade E on a homework, or grade C, just so I wouldn't get people, yeah,
and
gonna
I
make
can
that.
see how
Yeah,
this ties to possibly poorer performances,
right,
academic performances in quotes, people of color, as you
right,
say it,
right,
in that demographic. I mean, it's not as if they don't have the capacity to excel. It's just that
right,
excelling academically is not rated as something to be aspired to.
right,
So it's kind of there's kind of like a social negative impact socially for you as a person who is trying to better themselves academically in that circle compared to when you move to a more whiter area. So it
right,
is
right,
interesting. It's interesting that these cultural attitudes, which a lot of people seem to discount, actually account for a lot of things. I mean, in the whiter area, you're doing well and you're praised. You're you're seen, you're encouraged. You're seen as someone who is a superstar. Whereas where you're coming from, you may not get that kind of attention. It might actually be detrimental to you. And
mhm.
I want to strongly believe that if you did not have your mother, if your mother was not there strongly um, trying to keep you in check, I'm sure you would have just gone with the
Oh,
tide
I know.
of.
Oh, I'm very aware. Oh no, trust me, I know. If it wasn't for my mum, I wouldn't. I probably would. Well, I probably would have even joined the gang. Who even knows? Or, as they call it in South London, a roadman. I know for a fact. I would have. Undoubtedly, I would have. Yeah. Um. Also, right. You have to also remember, right? I don't really like talking about, but it's only recently due to a very good friend of mine,
Yeah,
well, friends of mine here on YouTube, Why It Matters and KB Jones, right? I've just recently just started talking about my secondary school experience, right? I was bullied a lot, in secondary school in South London, right? Also another difference is in South London, right? People that come from different um cultures. So, for example, like I said, right, the three biggest um black ethnic groups in the UK were people of Nigerian, um, Ghanaian or Jamaican background, right?
yeah,
Well, it was usually Nigerians and Jamaicans that were the two dominant, right? I often usually who I would get slack from were usually those of Caribbean descent.
yeah,
Also in primary school as well, I was bullied by quite a number of them really bad. It did lead to a period of time where I had a strong, immense dislike for people that were of Caribbean heritage, particularly if I heard they were Jamaican. I used to, turn my nose up and just not look at them. It was only recently, well, in the last couple of years, I've changed that mindset, due to awesome people that I've met that are of Caribbean descent, and made me have a different outlook. But yeah.
So, w- could you put a finger on why you were bullied by the Jamaican kids?
Well, it also had to do with my last name, right? If you were to know my last name, it was very a strong African, Nigerian sounding name, you know. Um, for example, something like lunch time, right? Most kids, they will have school dinners, right? I never had, my mom never had me have school dinners, right? She would make, for example, rice and stew with
Yeah,
plantain. I always had very like African dishes for my lunchtime, with the various meats,
yeah,
so sometimes some of the Jamaican kids, right, they won school dinners, which was, for example, school dinners consisted of like sausage and eggs, or beans, a ham sandwich or a tuna sandwich with like a Capri Sun, or an apple, versus
yeah,
mine, which was more heavy, which was, this was definitely an African dish, right? People will say, oh my gosh, that, for example, some of them, they will say, so Vincent, what is that shit that you're eating? Right? They would use words like that, and I'll get laughed at in the class. I used to feel very embarrassed. If I'm going to be honest with you, I did. I really did feel embarrassed. There were times I felt ashamed, of my last name. I felt ashamed of being Nigerian. It was just it was a daunting time. No, in that time, yeah. I was also
Were there
alone. Go on, go ahead.
were there no white kids in the class?
No, there were actually in my primary school. It was
What was their proportion?
okay, so there was what, like at least like 24 of us. Yeah, yeah, in our primary school class. They were consisted like 15, 16. Yeah. I didn't have issues with them per se, right? They seem to get on very well with the Caribbean kids, you know, and I've spoken about this before because, their culture is more closer to, English culture than, for example, African culture, where ours is so strong,
Yeah.
it's just very distinct. Even at times, even the white kids might join in and say, "Yeah, Vincent, why does your last name sound like that? Your surname sounds kind of weird." They'll poke jokes and, yeah.
So it was just kids being kids.
Pretty much, yeah, yeah. I'll say that, yeah, yeah. I'll say that. I've met one or two, couple that have actually apologized to me in the last year and said that they're really sorry for what they did, and even one even confessed to me that he actually wishes he was an African. And I was just, I said to him, "Look, no, mate, it's perfectly fine. We were kids back then. Bear in mind this was at the age of 6, 7, 8. It's tender ages. So yeah, yeah, that was
So
my.
were there any other Nigerian kids in the class?
No, as a matter of fact, I was the only one. No, there was one other Ghanaian kid. Actually, yes, yes, there was. Um, she seemed to get on well, actually, with the Caribbeans. To be honest with you, she never really. There's something I've noticed actually about people of Ghanaian descent. They don't ever really seem to receive the same flack as usually Nigerians for some odd particular reason that we. Yeah, I've noticed that. I do not know. Like I've noticed that they have a soft spot for Ghanaians, and likewise for Ghanaians tours. But Nigerians, no.
Wow. So let's go over to your experiences in the US. You
Mm.
you moved to the US when you were 18.
Yes, I did. Yes,
So
17 and a half. Yeah, yeah, almost 18.
17
Yeah,
and a half. Okay.
yeah.
So tell me about your experience in the US as a black man.
Um, well, for one, um, being here, I can definitely say I'm a lot more aware about my race. I don't know how to explain it, but it's just also this subconscious feeling like I feel like I'm also being watched every time I'm out. Even when I'm driving often, like I was early this morning. I saw some cops. I saw the way they were looking at me. Again, I was on guard. Um, Also, due to some of the videos that have been circulating the last couple of years of blacks and involvement with law enforcement. Um, and when people, I mean, sorry, for example, like some people say, "Oh, it's because you're black," right? There was one group I was in. Sorry, in one class I was in a couple terms ago. It was this class project study group, right? And I think I got just a couple questions wrong because I wasn't doing too well in this particular assignment, and if I, it was a quiz, right? And my other teammates, right, they were all white, American, obviously. They would say, "Yeah, it's because you're black. It's because you're black." And I said, "Excuse me," right? Like that. There was just, some cultural differences, if you want to put it that way. I just, yeah, I find that it's just more like you have to be a lot more alert as a black man in America. But yeah. Mr. Uganda, yes, I have actually twice. I have, yeah, I have.
So
But yeah, critical African
do
thing
you
is, yeah,
do you,
my
do you
go on.
think do you think that the reason why you are more aware, the reason why you're more cautious is because of what you're getting from maybe these videos on social media or from traditional media about how black people are being treated by the cops? Do you think that's a reason, that's a factor in why you are more aware, or why you're more cautious? Vincent is out. So let's wait for him to come back. Okay, he's back now.
Yep. Sorry about that. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, so I was asking, do you feel that one of the reasons why you felt more, you felt watched, or one of the reasons why you felt more aware was because of the kind of videos you've been seeing on social media and the kind of things that there has been circulating in traditional media about how the cops interact with Black people in America, especially Black men?
Yes, that partially, and um, I would also say also, just my response. My sorry, not not response. My um personal experiences. Sorry, can you hear me? Hello.
Yeah, yeah, I can hear you. Go
Okay.
ahead.
Yeah. That too. I can't really explain it, but it's just this feeling like I just know it's just because of my complexion. I really can't explain it, but um, just sometimes the types of looks I've gotten from people, right? For example, I've said this before on White Matters panel, I believe it was, right? At my uni, right? Sometimes I've sat next to, for example, a white female, and I'll notice that she seems more scared or just more like just the look on her face is just one that is, I guess, kind of horrified, like kind of like, oh, why
Mm,
is this next to me? And this has happened quite a number of times, mind you, different individuals. It's not as if it's just the same one.
yeah.
um I've even sometimes a couple white men as well, I've noticed that they seem a little bit more alert if I'm near them. In the UK, I never really got that at all, even when I moved to West Sussex, if I'd say. But
That's that's ironical because the US has a very large black population, and so they should be more used to seeing black people around. So
well,
for that
I'm
kind
pretty
of
sure you're very aware of the videos that African Americans make quite
yeah,
often, and their experiences. So that in itself tells you that clearly, some groups still aren't comfortable being around other groups.
wow,
I
that's
find in my
interesting.
experience that white Brits, it doesn't. No, it's not like that. With them, it's just more of a case of just for example, with them, it's more sly, if that makes sense.
Okay,
Yeah. White Americans,
so
no, they're a bit more obvious and blatant with it.
okay, so it's more in your face in America
Right, right. In the UK,
than in
it's
the
more
UK.
in the you have to be a bit more aware. Like you have to like pick up on it. It could even be like the way they're talking to you, right?
Mm,
It's just kind of almost in a condescending way, but also saying it in a friendly way. Now, obviously, I've
mm,
mastered British, right? So I can pick it up instantly. If you're an
mm,
immigrant to the UK, you won't be able to tell. But in America, no, it's more upfront.
mm.
And also, I've told you as well, my younger brother too, he has been called the N word as well. So it's, yeah, exactly why it matters, right? It's very passive aggressive, and that's something I also did deal with when I was in primary school. Now that I look back on my experiences, always, just the way the teacher might talk to me. Yeah, that, right, very intelligent and witty, right, right,
Wow.
yeah.
So how do you deal with these things, especially with the passive aggressive racism? How do you deal with it?
Well, I'm not in the UK right now. If that's what, no, I'm
No,
in the
no.
US.
I know you're
Um,
in the US. When you were in the UK, how did you deal with that?
um, at the time, I wasn't. You have to remember, right? When I left the UK, I still wasn't really the same person as I am now. Now I'm a lot more vocal and bold. But I remember towards the last couple of years when I was there, right? I did kind of call it out, and I would match it as well with passive aggression. And they seem to pipe down when they know that you have caught them. That's when
Yeah.
yeah, it's more like mind games. When I was 16, 17, that's when I really started to mature too. But before then, I was very docile. I was also very meek and timid. I wouldn't really even say anything. I used to think it was really just my fault. But yeah, that's how I dealt. But yeah, towards the end, I know better now.
So Anne is asking, when you speak in an English accent, do Americans treat you nicer?
Actually, yes, they do. Yes, and when I've been pulled over, actually no, it's not 2 times. Actually, it's like 3 times. Yeah, yeah. two different times when I got pulled over, right? The cop, when he saw me, his face seemed a little bit agitated, if I would say, right? And the moment I opened my mouth and I started speaking, he seemed to really just like his shoulders. I noticed kind of slamped down a bit. Like he was like, oh, it was like a breath of fresh air. He was like, oh wow, and he commented where I was from. I said I'm from London, and can you imagine, right? He said, oh, so what are you doing here in the US? Or I told him, I was studying, I was at the university studying to be a pilot. I said, wow, that's so awesome. And can you imagine he forgot why he even pulled me over as well? And he said, "Oh, okay. Well, I think I can't remember why I pulled you over, but you just have to remember, right here on American roads, we're like under 55 if you can, but don't go above 60." That yeah, it was just. I know for a fact, right? If I was black or if I had an American accent, it would have definitely gone another way. I know that for a fact because I did that one time, right? My very first vehicle, I got into a very bad car accident, and I don't know for some reason I started talking like an American when the police showed, and the person who hit me, he was they were two rednecks, right? I noticed that they seemed to take more to them. With me, it was just more kind of in a stern way, more. I'm gonna say it wasn't unfriendly, but just don't get too close. It was just very very professional, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Just a little bit kind of cold, but yeah. But yeah, that's to answer your question, Anna. And yes, it's gotten to a point that now I've managed to master the American accent, talk like an American, because I just hate it when I'm asked to repeat myself over again because, for example, my accent might be too strong for certain individuals, or because they just want to hear me talk, you know. So yeah.
Okay. Now, let me pick on something that you said earlier. Now, you're a black man in
Mhm.
America.
Right.
Um, the police, when they accosted you at first, they seemed a little bit more hostile. But when they heard your English accent, he relaxed more and even forgot why exactly he was holding you, why he stopped you in the first place.
That's
So,
correct.
uh, your black skin still remained, but his attitudes towards you changed.
Right.
Why? What's if it was your black skin that made him that amped up towards you? I mean, that still remained. Why did he suddenly perceive you as less of a threat? Is it that um it, it's not a function of actually the skin, it's a function of how they perceive black Americans, I mean original black
Yeah.
Americans
It
in
is.
America?
You really just answered the question already. Like that's really the answer. When I first got here to the US, right? There were these rednecks that they befriended me, right? I was hanging out with them quite a lot actually in the beginning. I never knew anything much about well, at least Southern American history. I'm going to be honest with you. I was very ignorant to a lot of the things, right? They I remember one guy who I don't talk to anymore. He said, "Oh, I shouldn't really be talking much to the blacks here. No, I shouldn't be talking to the Americans here." And he meant the black Americans. That I didn't really pick up on it, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
You know, he and I remember asking him why, and he said, "Oh, that you just don't want to be influenced, or just don't act like them." And I think he was trying to refer to the ones that are maybe ghetto, or the ones that have the poor
yeah,
image, that act like
yeah.
the stereotype. I think that's what he was trying to get at. But to them, they're all the same. Um, Obviously, I didn't really but it's only now, years later, now I understood. I understand what he was saying. Now I don't see the bloke anymore. So yeah.
So, have you experienced racism in America? And if you have, what forms did it take, and what impact did it have on you?
I wouldn't say I've experienced racism, no, but I will kind of say more so microaggressions. Like I said, right, the individual I had with that white female at my university, and even others as well, like, and even a few white men, you know, just their body language, you could just show that is that like they're quite timid, or they don't maybe feel too comfortable. It's to them it kind of frightens them as well.
Okay.
I had this experience last year when I was going to a friend of mine, his younger cousin's birthday, right? I was at the Walmart, and now his younger cousin is a girl, a female.
Mm,
I had no idea what a 7-year-old girl would like for her birthday. So, I went
mm,
to the children's section and, as you can imagine, right, I saw, a bunch of mothers. They were actually all white. Well, there was one or two black mothers with their children, but yeah, they were all mothers with their children, right? And I remember I approached this one white woman. She had two young children, boy and a girl, and when I was approaching her, I saw that she had the look of horror, in her eyes, right? And granted, she was wearing glasses, but you could see that her eyes enlarged, right? It was like, oh my
yeah.
gosh, a black man's approaching me, and even her children, right? They kind of hid behind their mum's skirt. It was just like, oh my gosh, like why is this giant of a black man approaching us? And so what I did, right, I quickly walked. So I'm sorry, I changed the speed of my, the way I was walking. I walked more slowly, right, and I said,
Yeah.
hello, miss. If again, I spoke how I normally do, right? I'm speaking now, and she again, I noticed why she seemed more relaxed. He was like, oh,
Yeah.
the first thing she said to me is like, oh, where are you from? And I said, oh, I'm from London. And she burst out into smile, and you could tell she was visibly relaxed. you know um yeah, I know, for maybe if it was American again, it would have gone a different way. And this happened, right, this other situations which I can't exactly remember off the top of my head, but I do remember that I guess my accent has gotten me out of trouble, out of tense situations, if that makes sense. But yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's very, very interesting. I mean, um what exactly is the issues with Black Americans? Why would other Americans feel them as much of a threat, even though they don't see other Africans as much of a threat? I don't know. I can't really wrap my head around that. And if someone can prefer a reason or someone can give an answer for that, I mean, because
Can I?
Vincent
Sorry.
actually
Yeah, go on.
Vincent actually was a black man, and when they perceived that he was British, a British black, but still black, he was
Right.
treated better than if he was an American black. So I don't know. Maybe some white people can come on. And when I open up the stream for other people to call in, then
Mm.
maybe I can ask some white people, what is it about the black Americans themselves that you
Can I
find
just
threatening?
very quickly, right, Mr. Uganda, if you can highlight his last comment in the chat room.
This one?
Right, right. So he said, right, I'm going to read it, right. There was a woman who told me that before she entered the US, people at immigration or the embassy were telling her not to associate with Black Americans just many years ago. Do you know what happened, right, Charles, right? When we, when I left England, right, I remember when I was at customs and immigration, right, there was this one woman, her name was Gomez, but, she looked like a white woman. I guess she was a white Latina. And she said, especially to my mum, that we shouldn't interact much with Black Americans. Like I kid you not, you know.
Wow.
I wasn't, yeah, but my mum told me what happened. I wasn't too far away from her, and my brother was also with her, and they were quite shocked. My brother asked, "Wait, why shouldn't we?" And she said, "Oh, you'll see when you get to know them more." As you can imagine, right? Again, that was also a culture shock as well. I really don't understand the dislike towards um Black Americans, because I have met some bad apples of the bunch, but I've also met many
Yeah.
good apples. In fact,
Yeah.
more good than I have bad. Obviously at the university I attend, there are some bad apples that have outrightly been xenophobic towards me because me
Yeah.
being British, or just clearly not being one of them, right? And also told, when they find out that I'm of Nigerian heritage, right? Told her, oh, so you're a descendant of those slave traders, or that. And
Mm.
as you can imagine, it was quite awkward, quite tense, but yeah, I don't let
I,
that get to me. But um,
I
yeah, go
think
on.
that I think groups are usually kind of suspicious of each other because of certain conceptions, certain preconceptions. I'll give an example of myself.
Mhm.
And when this thing happened to me, I by the time I had finished, I was like, what did you just do? So now in Nigeria, the religion is almost evenly split. Let's
Oh, I
say
know.
50% Muslims, let's say 45% Christians. And
Mm,
most of the Christians live in the south, most of the Muslims live in the north. Now, because of insurgency and all that, which is predominant in the north, um, it's easy to just classify northerners as terrorists or uh, and all that because that is where it is predominant.
right.
I have Muslim friends. I move with Muslim people, so I would not say I have any ill feelings or any bias towards them, against them. But I noticed something very interesting. In 2016, I was coming back from work. I was
Mm,
very hungry. So
okay.
I saw a place where they sell akara. I don't know if you know akara. I saw a place where they sell akara, bean cake.
Yeah.
So I stopped to go get it. Now, immediately I got there, I saw the woman who was selling it. She just came out of her store and she was dressed in this hijab, the one that covers the face, the black thing, all from top
Right,
to
right,
bottom.
right. Yeah, yeah. Full right.
Immediately I just turned back and left. Now, it was when I had left, I was not like, why exactly did I turn
It was
back? I mean,
bias. It was a
I
bias,
I
right?
I don't. Yeah, it was a bias. I really don't have any ill feeling towards Muslims,
Mm,
but just the fact that I saw that, the extreme form of the dressing kind of just triggered a very primal, um, would I say, a very primal misconception or
right.
about what Muslims are. You get. So
Mm,
I do see things like that happen. I mean, groups, there are always going to be misconceptions about each other based on probably based on the actions of just a few individuals or based on what is being portrayed. But it's
mm,
interesting, it's a very intriguing human phenomena that you could you could be friends with a group of people and still act towards someone of that same group in a somewhat fashion
right, right.
that's distasteful.
Yeah. There is one other question that was addressed much earlier in the chat room before I forget. It was made by Anne
Okay.
Anne, right?
Okay.
It was early said, but I wrote it down, right? I don't know if the person is a he or she. They said, how would you compare Ghanaians and Nigerians? How about British Ghanaians versus British Nigerians? And then
Mm,
also American Ghanaians to American Nigerians. Well, in the UK, right? Obviously, my experience with Ghanaians has mostly been in the UK in London.
mm,
Again, I would say it's very similar, right? Obviously, we border pretty much right next to them, all apart from those two small countries, but really we're right next to each other. There isn't much differences, obviously, apart from language. Really, other than that, I
mm,
really find that we tend to be almost the same. Um, our attitude as well, even the way to education. They too have a similar mindset as well. Um, Now, one thing I've noticed between us British Africans, if you're versus, the Africans, like African, well, their parents came and the children raised in America is,
yeah.
um, okay, I'm going to use the Nigerian example. So me being British Nigerian, right? I've noticed that we tend to retain our culture more. Like we're more in debt, more in tune with our Nigerian heritage, right?
Mm,
We even will say, "Oh, I'm Nigerian." We don't really say I'm British Nigeria. It's only really in recent years that I've now a lot of I guess Black Brits were now saying, "Oh, I'm British," whatever their country of origin is,
yeah.
right? But Nigerian Americans, right? I've noticed that they seem to just. Granted, yes, they are American, undoubtedly, right?
Yeah.
I've noticed that they're not as in tune with their Nigerian cultural heritage. Like they seem to at least I'm also going also based on my experience, at least with my cousins as well. And their
Mm,
parents they were born and raised in America all their life, right? They will say, "Oh, I'm American. I'm American." And I'm like, "Okay, cool, cool." I might might say a common Nigerian phrase like, "Oh, how you dare?"
mm,
Just trying to
yeah.
yeah, yeah. They will say, "Oh, well, I don't understand that." And look, I understand. You Nigerians like to do so, and I was like, "Wait, excuse me. Like, I'm from London as well. Like, I'm British,
Yeah.
but it's just a stark difference in the way British Nigerians are to Nigerian Americans. It's just like we are pretty different. That's something I've noticed. They're more Americanized, or I'm even going to say more Westernized, right?
Mm.
But us Brits, Black Brits, we just retain our culture and we identify as that, if that makes sense. But yeah.
Wow.
Oh, okay,
So that's one of the difference
um,
between uh
right. And I'd also say I strongly suspect it's also the same with Ghanaian. I have met two Ghanaian Americans. Yeah, they're also the same as well. You know, I've noticed that about, British black immigrants versus, you know, American black immigrants. The American black immigrant, when they get here, they seem to kind of, well, not completely, but almost forget their country of origin and just completely immerse themselves in the American culture and just say, "Oh, I'm just American." It's almost
yeah.
like they tend to severe links or ties with their country of origin versus us in the UK, right? We strongly retain and we even identify more with that than British. Like um,
Mm.
White Masses, he said, "Oh, I've always called myself Brit." Oh, really? Well, again, you were raised in the Midlands, right? In London, well, at least in my experience, right? If you were Jamaican, British, Ghanaian, you will say, "Oh, I'm Jamaican. Oh, I'm Nigerian. I'm um Ghanaian." That's really how it was. Now it's only recently that a lot of my friends too are saying, "Oh, I'm British, Nigerian. I'm British, Ghanaian." So I guess we're kind of starting to copy our black immigrant counterparts in the US. So yeah,
Mm. That's interesting. So let me post the link
yeah,
on the
sure.
chat,
Yeah,
so
let's
anybody
have
that wants to call can call in so that we have a more robust conversation. Thank you very much, Vincent, so far for
Can
the
I?
insight you've given.
Yeah, can I also interject very quickly, right? Also touching on
Okay.
my experiences in Nigeria, right?
Yeah.
Again, right? Because I never really touched much on that, right? I'm just seen as British, right? I'm just seen as English. I'm not really seen as a Nigerian per se, right? Among my family, right? They tend to out like I'm kind of seen as just different. Like I'm not really included, And if, for example, it could be a function, it could just be, about family events or just things to do with the family, like family affairs,
Mm.
right? And they will say, "Oh, well, you don't really know the culture anyway. You're really you know you you're really from the UK, like I don't know, go and
Yeah.
worry about your fish and chips." Some of my cousins back there have said to me, and they'll
Yeah.
call me again the popular nickname, which I find it to be quite irritating, but I've started to embrace it. Queen's child, that's they call me. Even my grandma said that to me.
Mm.
Um, yeah.
But
Um,
do they say that with malice, or do they say it in a teasing manner?
Again, right? Yes, sort of, and no. At times, it could just be seen as if like I'm being seen as a nuisance. It's like, oh, what could I possibly know? Like they know more. Like they will say I should go and Nigerize or Africanize myself more. That apparently I'm too British, like the way I think. And if I'm going to be honest with you, Charles, it recently, right, I've started to disconnect a lot from Nigerian culture in many ways, and just instead just immerse myself in British culture and just say, well, you know what it is. I'm just going to just identify as Black British. I'm of Nigerian heritage, but I just see myself as British first before I do as Nigerian because um again, like even when I'm around some locals in Nigeria, right, they just
Yeah.
they would make it a point to say, oh, I'm not one of them, that I'm from outside, and they just like to always ask me questions about the UK. Oh,
Yeah.
so like in London, to be honest with you, even when I'm at events, I don't really feel connected. Like I kind of feel like an outsider, even amongst my own people of country of origin. But yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Yeah, that will happen. That will happen because
I mean,
there,
you're gone.
no matter how much you were raised by a Nigerian mother in the UK, there's still going to be some gaps in terms of the cultural attitudes and differences you get. So
Right,
when you're in Nigeria, they see you basically as a white man.
right, they
That
do,
is
right,
what they will
right,
see
and
you.
I've even been called an Oyinbo or a white man,
Yeah.
and you know what? I've just started to say, well, if you guys are not going to claim me or say, oh, I'm also a Nigerian as well, well then and excuse my French. Well, F you guys then. I'm just gonna just identify as British and just British solely. Yeah, I now have that mindset. And at times when I, instead just act, I guess, more British, as they would say, right? They would say, "Oh, have I forgotten home? Have I not forgotten that I'm on?" So it's kind of almost like mind games, because
Yeah,
I've
yeah,
said this
yeah,
before on Why It Matters, right? Is this how mixed race individuals feel? When they're around blacks, they will say, "Oh, they see them as whites, or they just see them as other."
yeah.
And again, when they're with blacks, again, it's the same thing. So it's almost like I'm playing tennis with my nationality, and again, also with Americans, even despite on paper being an American citizen, I'm not even seen as American, regardless, because of my accent and I guess the way I act. So again, even there
Exactly.
too as well. So again, in three different continents, there is like projection. So, but if I had to say where I feel the most at home and where I feel most accepted, I'm just going to say it's the UK, Charles. So yeah,
Okay, so you feel more at home at the UK. So,
I do.
yeah,
If
you
I
would.
feel
You
more at
spend most
home,
of your time there. So
I feel a lot more at home
basically,
in
your
the UK than I
formative
do.
years were.
Yeah, yeah. I feel a lot more at home in the UK than I do in Nigeria. Because even when I'm in Nigeria, I feel like I'm a guest. I don't really feel so connected. And even here in the US, I feel like a permanent resident. If I'm going to be honest with you, I don't really see myself as being one of them too. So yeah, that's my answer for that.
Okay, so we have some people on the stream now. We have Mr.
Awesome.
Uganda. Welcome, Mr. Uganda. We have Jermaine and we have White Matters. Welcome, guys. How are you guys doing?
Doing good.
Good,
Thanks for having me.
good. Thank you.
Good.
Awesome.
So I hope we have a white man in this panel because I really want to ask them one question. I want to ask them
That would be me,
why.
but I was born in Africa. I was born in Swaziland, so I'm
Oh,
white, but
Oh
oh,
no.
great, great. You actually sound South African. You
Yeah.
sound
it
South
comes
African.
out. It comes out. Thank you.
So I hope you would be able to answer that question for me. So welcome, guys. So you can jump into the conversation. You have anything for Vincent? Any questions for Vincent? Go ahead.
Um, I guess I called in because I resonated with what he was saying regarding when you go back to your country of descent and
Right.
you're not really seen as one of them. I think it's really interesting when you're born in the West, and you have like African descent, because
Right.
we
Mhm.
exist in a liminal space, like we're not quite African, we're not exactly British, but
Right. Right.
we seem to have a solid place. And even myself, when I travel to Uganda, we're perceived as Muzungu, which is
Right.
essentially,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
And I mean, it's hard, but I think I tried to, it's like I tried to adopt a chameleon presence where when I go to Uganda, I try to really assimilate with them, but I
Right.
found that
Right. Same.
we're not really
Mhm.
seen as authentic. So I just
I
really
know.
stick to myself.
Well,
Yeah.
you know what, Mr. Uganda, right? And also White Matters too. You also been right. Do you think that it's going to come to a point where us Black Brits, like, we're going to soon be like our Black American counterparts, where okay, the UK is now definitely our home, that we make it our home, but we're going to eventually just say we're just Black Brits of Afro Caribbean heritage. Like, if you guys get me, like, in the next like 3-4 generations, do you think it's going to get to that point, or what's your thought on that?
I mean, for me, yeah, definitely. I mean, I know we've been having a lot of conversations about this type of stuff, but
Right.
definitely, I think a lot of times because of that fact, we almost seem as if we're not accepted by the British, the white side, and then accepted by,
Right.
say, our home countries. It's just like
Right.
we're forging our own identity. And
Right.
yeah, as the generations and kids keep going on, it's going to be more of the same, or we're going to get our own unique identity, and we can keep on passing it over. And then
Right.
before long, we'll have very little connection to
So right, our
the
country.
continent.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I agree.
unless immigration keeps going on, you know what I mean. You still have
Yeah.
that, but all honestly, you see yourself as different to a point where
Right.
guarantee it, you have your future generation saying, "I'm not like you," even though you are
Right.
from a
Right.
place. We'll get like that
Mhm.
a lot.
Right.
Well, can I say a perspective on that is if so I was a missionary child and I was born from American parents, but I was born in Swaziland.
Okay.
In and I grew up knowing that I was white, but didn't really care about it. I said
Okay.
I'm a Swazi, but I knew I was an American citizen.
Right.
And I think one of the most um, very, very trying times of my life was when I had to move to the US.
Mhm.
And I came to a place where it was majority Black Americans.
Okay.
And I, I had no problem. I thought, oh, this is fine because I'm used to this. I thought they were the same as Swazis, but I felt I got rejection. They ridiculed me for being African. For my, I had a very strong accent,
Right. I had that too.
and
Yeah, I know. I can
I
relate.
didn't understand.
Yeah.
I mean, it was
Mm.
so mind-boggling. I mean, it was very traumatic. But I think that's such a weird perspective because I always don't know where I quite fit in. Uh,
Right. Mm.
so, and I
Yeah.
think that it to address that what you said about will will the second generation Africans
Right.
be seen as Americans or British.
Right. Right. Right.
um you know I think it's true, but it's funny to me how well I'm not always right, but a lot of times I can pick out the people who are second generation, third generation Africans, but
Mm.
they have a difference in the way of their manner or culture or whatever. But to Americans who've never been overseas, they are just viewed as Black Americans. Yes.
Mm. Okay.
So,
Well,
so a question for you, Jamin. If they are viewed as Americans, why are they in relation to other blacks? Why are they treated more harshly, if I would say, at least from the feelers I got from Vincent? What about them evokes that kind of reaction?
So, can you clarify the question? You're saying why are the second generation
No,
Africans?
I mean the Black Americans that have never been outside of America. I mean, you said you could pick out the second generation African immigrants. You could pick them out from their behavior and what they
Okay.
do.
So
You
you're
get?
saying why are the Black Americans
Yes.
more treated worse by whom? I'm a bit confused.
Okay. Vincent said something when he was giving his when he was talking. He when the policeman accosted him the first time, assuming him to be a Black American, his behavior was more cold. It wasn't really hostile, but it was cold. But when he noticed that it was British, though still black, he became much more friendly. So I'm seeing here that the issue is not really it wasn't really the color of his skin so much as it was he's being perceived as not being a Black American. So what about Black Americans evokes that kind of behavior in, say, the white people or in the cops? What about them?
Well, um, I think it's a complicated answer, but part of it is I think within Black American culture, it's been taught this idea that we should always be suspectful of the police, um, and I think that in a certain time, especially the 1960s and before, that was good to tell your children because they were definitely mistreated. But I think that it's carried on into something that is like it's like a remnant that if I and if I look at like data, I say, well, it's not something you should be really worrying about. But the way that it's been taught, I think that's a factor. But then I think so. There's maybe I should say just two factors. That factor, but then I think that Black Americans are they think I think they're struggling for their identity, and when you have a situation, in my opinion, and you can disagree, you have a situation where they have the rights that they should have. They for so long they've been operating in a liberation narrative. So then when that when you say, well, what politically, let's say, what are you fighting against? Still, it's still like somewhere comfortable that they are. So then in their interactions with whites, and I've seen this, to me personally, they think they think whites are still out to get them all the time, so I don't know if that makes sense, but
Okay.
No, it doesn't.
Mr. Uganda.
It doesn't make sense.
Okay. Who's speaking?
This is Kevin.
Before you go, okay. Before you go, Kevin and Sales, just 1 minute. You get to that point, Mr. Uganda will come first before you. So let him just say something before you, Mr. Uganda.
Yeah, thank you very much. When I heard the question, my first reaction was, it wasn't so much about what is it with Black Americans that makes them, target by the police. It was actually towards what makes the Black British person exempt from having the same socialization. I think with the British accent, it affords them it's like they're able to have that foreign privilege, and that is really powerful. And when we think about Britain, remember, Britain, for the most part, colonized a majority of the world. It was the British Empire where the sun never set. So when you think of British way of speaking, it does carry the connotation that you are elevated. So when you're juxtaposing a Black American with a Black American accent against a Black British individual, it's the Black British person's way of speaking that carries the connotation that they come from more prestige and they have a better way of carrying themselves, which might help a situation just a teeny weeny bit. But that's what my perception was when I heard that question.
Okay. So Kevin and Sales, go ahead.
Respectfully, how you guys doing? Jameen, I only heard the last minute of the show. I got the notification. I got to disagree with Jameen, and I respectfully have to disagree with them. African Americans know exactly who they are. African Americans have created their own culture within a larger culture within America. African Americans, for the most part, are the greatest African group in terms of the diaspora. It's clearly obvious that every African group has clearly tried to steal or imitate African American culture in terms of rap music, in terms of R&B music, in terms of even dressing and style. Let's just be honest. Now, I do got to broach what Mr. Uganda said. Mr. Uganda, me being in America, I can tell you clearly, white police officers that have pulled me over have gone really above and beyond to treat me fairly. Most of the times when blacks are pulled over in America, the ones who get shot or who get in some sort of physical altercation with police, 9 times out of 10, the nigga has done something wrong. He's either resisting arrest, he's not complying with orders, etc. Now, I use this as an example, even on my panel when I go live. If what we're not saying is true as African Americans, why don't black medical doctors get pulled over and get shot and killed? Why don't black engineers get pulled over and shot and killed? There are plenty black African American professors, scholars, intellectuals, they don't get pulled over and shot and killed or assaulted because you know what? 9 times out of 10, they follow the law or they're complying with the law, even if they get pulled over, quote unquote, unjustly. So, you know, I don't take this narrative that that there's police injustice in America. Now, I do believe, however, there is some sort of systemic or prejudice that do exist, systemic prejudice. But other than that, most of the times, Black people who in the States, if they get pulled over and if they get, you know, some sort of altercation with the police, they have done something. Now, I do kind of agree with Mr. Uganda on the British accent. Yes, the British accent is very eloquent. It does bring with it a little bit of refinement, and I will agree with you on that. I think that accent does carry weight in dealing with institutions, etc. Whereas Black Americans tend to talk with a Black accent. A lot of Black Americans talk street. So I do agree with you on that. But I really have to disagree with Jameen on the whole thing about Black Americans not having an identity. I think Black Americans have. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say, right, you brought up something that I keep hearing it time and time again, especially in these spaces, about trying to imitate, well, at least in the dressing sense.
Vincent,
can you explain what do you mean by other groups try to imitate
Vincent,
dressing?
Let's be completely honest. Let's be completely honest. Now, I'm a little bit older than you guys, and I'm going to tell you this. African Americans ain't watching Nigerians. They ain't watching South Africans. Every African group in the diaspora is watching us. When African Americans encounter other African peoples, they literally try to imitate African Americans in terms of this urban attire, even sometimes with speech patterns. I have seen it myself with Jamaicans. I have seen it myself with Haitians. I have seen it myself with West Africans. I've even seen it with East Africans. They will imitate Black Americans. They will have posters of Black Americans on their wall. And to a degree, it's admirable. But let's just be completely honest. African Americans ain't copying people, and we're not influenced by Blacks from Britain. We're not influenced by Blacks from the continent, the father continent or the mother continent. Let's be completely honest. We're not taking no style from an Angolan. We're just not. It's not in the African American nature.
I think to that point, Kevin Sales, the reason is because 2 things. Number one, the US, the culture dominates because of the US is so powerful. So because white media over there is so powerful, you guys really, I mean, I don't think Americans really look at media anyway outside of the US. So you wouldn't even really get that influence from there. Whereas unfortunately, when it comes to like over here, for no fault of our own, we get beamed in like a lot of not just American content or culture, but other countries of the world content in which get beamed over to us. I think that plays a part into the reason why, from your perspective, it seems as if there's no copying. Because if I'll be honest with you, a lot of the cultural traits in America, Black Americans, historically, they do stem from like Caribbean, like dancehall, hip hop. It has a lot of other fusion, but Americans, because it's created in America, they see it as, oh, it's ours, it's ours, it's ours, it's just ours, which is fine. But a lot of times I just think it's the media that permeates in the US is just US centric, whereas over here it's a lot different. So we can glean a lot of culture just in general. I think that's the difference.
Let's keep it honest though. Let's be honest. What you're saying is true to a degree. But let's be honest, the actual genre of rap, you can say that, well, African people are a rhythm people. We have beats that stem back tens of thousands of years. Yes, you can say that. But the actual genre itself or genre was actually created in New York by Black Americans.
Well, it wasn't. Yes, but it was also created by Jamaican Americans, Barbadian Americans, DJ Kool Herc, and the original, because the whole rap music came from a lot of Jamaican dancehall culture. So yes and no. Yes, you're right. It was created in like New York. It was created by Americans by technical standards. However, a lot of the roots do stem from other aspects. The calypso, the dancehall. That's why I'm like, you're right, but it's like there's just a little bit remaining, which is like, okay, it doesn't get promoted as much.
Well,
Okay.
can I say,
Jeremy, go ahead.
The clarification, I actually agree with you, Kevin Sales.
Thank you.
About your general, what you're saying about Black Americans and about the police, I actually totally agree. I think that I don't know if I was misunderstood but um, I guess the question was why would they treat um, someone with a British accent, or they might be more congenial. And I was trying to attempt an answer at that. Um, and I think there's two things that I don't quite understand. Um, and can you still hear me?
Yeah, you sound a little low, but yeah, we got
Yeah,
it.
so you might
Oh,
want to go back out and come back in, Jimmy, because your
Yeah,
phone
I'll
was
come back
ringing.
in.
Yeah, it happens. Yeah.
Can I just say something on this? Because I think what's been talked about is something called that. I think Mr. Ugandan said it, a foreign privilege. Because
Right.
I've realized this. Like, I guarantee if a black and American was to go over to, let's say, another country, what would happen is, like, say Dominican Republic, because there's a lot of black people in Dominican Republic, because they don't speak Spanish, instantly there'll be a different reaction from a black person who actually is in Dominican Republic and speaks Spanish, as opposed to a black foreigner. And what would happen, I suspect, is they will try and get hustled a lot more than a black person from Dominican Republic, because they don't know the culture, they don't know the ways. So I think a lot of times it's that foreign aspect where, because you're different, even though you have the same skin color, you may get treated a different type of way. I'm not saying it has to be dead harsh, but I think there's a bit of that where I've seen it myself, where I guarantee a foreigner in the UK, if he goes into a taxi, he will get screwed because that taxi driver knows you don't know this place. Therefore, I'm
Yeah.
going to go all over the place to screw you over and get more money. Whereas if I hear the accent, which I'm used to in my area, I know this guy knows what he's doing. I can't screw him over. So I think there's a little bit of that what always takes place, regardless of skin color.
Yeah.
Okay.
Agreed.
Let me come in a bit before Jermaine continues. Two things. One, when you say African Americans are not trying to copy other African groups in the US, well, obviously they won't try to copy other groups because they are in their domain. They're in the US. I bet that is going to change if they come to somewhere like Africa where the culture is different. You're ultimately going to absorb the larger culture around you. So when black
course.
people go to the US and they mix with African Americans, most likely they're going to be more influenced by African American culture than the other way around. But then I don't see that as a net positive thing, because the way cultures evolve, the way cultures grow is by interaction with other cultures and assimilating, taking some features from other cultures and improving on it and making it better. That's how historically, that's how progress has been made, from the Greeks to the Romans to the British to whatever empires. A conquering force comes, they see the local culture, they take something from it and add it to their own culture, and becomes good. So if African Americans are not trying to take things from other groups, it may lead to a stagnation of the African American culture. So I don't think it is ultimately
Yeah.
a good thing to
I agree.
just be that and not copy from other people.
Well, yeah, I agree. I say this, and I've said this for years. Nigeria will be and it's not an opinion. You could just tell by the trajectory of the country itself right now. Nigeria will be a world power, or one of many world powers, by the year 2100. It certainly is going to have the population for it. It's certainly going to have the economy for it. It will be in the best interest of African Americans, who are the least bilingual people on the planet, to start learning different languages, particularly at least one African language. It'll be very important for Black Americans to learn about other cultures on the planet, and stop having a quasi-imperialistic view on the world that we do. Now, one of the reasons why we do have this opinion is because we believe that America is the greatest country on the planet. Therefore, we don't give a shit about other places. That's why most Americans are not bilingual. It's because it's not just a Black American thing. It's a cultural thing in America. We feel like American football is better than any other sport on the planet. We feel like our media is better. We feel like our cuisine is better. And I'm not talking about me myself, but I'm talking about the American sentiment. So you are correct, Charles. We are African Americans are going to have to embrace other cultures and adapt. And you are correct, especially within the next 75 years, because African Americans will be left behind if they don't. And you are absolutely correct.
Can I just
All right,
also
so-
interject, right, Kevin, right? When you said copyright, and you said the culture, right? What you mentioned was only just two things, right? You said music and also, I guess, the social habits. But you also realized that, the definition of culture is, right, is the characteristic and knowledge, right? For example, language, religion, cuisine, and like I said, social habits, music, and arts. Those are only just certain elements of the culture. It's not as if we copy in terms of language or cuisine or religion, if you understand where I'm coming from. It's really just, I guess, maybe the music. Okay, they might adopt certain characteristics or certain behavior or slang.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Oh no, I was listening to you. You were saying
Right. Yeah, so what I'm trying to say is, like, it's almost like the way it's being portrayed as if it's almost everything about them that other groups copy. It just, to me, sounds quite bizarre, if I'm going to be honest with you, because those are only certain elements. It's just social habits and music. So what, slang and music? But are you listening to music 24/7? I think not. So
you're saying this. So you're basically saying it's pretty egregious for me to say that other African groups and part of the diaspora.
I'm not saying that. No. I'm not denying what you're saying, because I do know that does exist. But also, how many? Well, I mean, is it every African that's doing it? How many are doing it? Is it a large number of them that are trying to imitate African Americans?
No, not at all. No, not at all. I was just pretty much saying that we have more of an influence on the population than
I agree.
Yeah, other groups of Africans. Yeah.
I think White Matters. I want to interject. White Matters. Do you?
Yeah, no, that's fine. No, Kevin Sales said it. I was going to speak a little bit of that in regards to, but yeah, I think it's just because of US itself is the superpower in terms of what's going on. So I think if, like, for example, Nigeria becomes a superpower, like Kevin Sales was saying, everyone will be looking at Nigerian culture, everyone will be looking at Nigerian heritage, everyone will try and copy, because that will be the gold standard. So every single civilization that's been the gold standard, people try and copy people in the standard. Like when it comes to black people, we'll copy the black gold standard in that gold standard country. You see what I mean? So we don't do it all the time. I think just when it comes to what maybe black Americans are exposed to, when it comes to music and other cultures, it just happens to be in arenas which they seem to like dominate and they like, I think, or they originate with, if that makes sense.
Oh,
like,
it does.
Music. So they only really see like black Brits in like American TV shows, rap music. So they see it as, oh, you're copying all of us. And it's like, oh, no. There's more to us than that. But we only interact with them in certain settings, which makes them probably over it, maybe exaggerate a little bit, if it's fair to say. Even though there's so much to us, which they just aren't really as exposed to as we are to them, I think.
You know what's going to be, and this is kind of like off the topic, but on the topic, but you know it's going to be even more terrifying if Nigeria tackles its corruption level at every level of society. Nigeria is going to actually be a force to be reckoned with on the entire planet. There's a joke in America. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this. Maybe Vincent is, because he's been here, or he's here right now. I'm very friendly with a lot of people, whites, Indians, etc. When I was younger, I had an Indian friend, and his mom used to always say, honey, she was talking to her son, which is my friend, honey, either you're going to be what did she say? She said, either you're going to be a engineer, or you're going to be a Nigerian. And so she basically was saying that even this Indian woman was basically saying that Nigeria is the gold standard, meaning that if you're a Nigerian, that means you encompass all the engineering, doctor stereotypes. You get what I'm saying? So either you could become just a little engineer, or you become a Nigerian, because people are really viewing Nigerians as the as once how we used to view the Asian in America. Because there's a stereotype that all Asians are smart. So the stereotype is that Nigerians are either super smart, super successful, or either corrupt. So when that corruption stereotype is over with, Nigeria is going to be on a completely different scale than than the Asians or the Indians ever were. Because at least with Nigerians have more, and this could be my own bias, but Nigerians tend to have more of character in terms of they're not as bland as Indians or Asians are. They're intelligent, but they come with some sort of character, if that makes any sense.
I'm pretty
Well,
sure that's
can I
why.
interject?
Oh, go on.
Okay. Please let me ask some. Kevin B. Black wants to come in for a while, and the panel is full. So can someone just volunteer for me to swap them with Kevin B. Black?
Sure, I can. I know I'm being put in the back because I'm not really saying anything. So yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. So go ahead.
Well, I think Kevin, you actually kind of answered the question that I was responding to, the question about the why would with a British accent, police officer would maybe be less less aggressive or something. But so there's two things I wanted to say. Is you're right about your saying that that actually Black Americans do have an identity that is of their own, and it's also American. But there's this dichotomy that I see that, and I don't quite understand it, because I see that in my interactions with a lot of this was when I was younger, but in my interactions with African Americans, sometimes there's an insecurity, or maybe it's an aggressiveness, and I view that as an insecurity or something. But then on the other hand, it's also like an aggressiveness, like we don't care who you are, because we know who we are. So I don't know how to kind of negotiate that. So that's like my first point. But then second point of what you're saying is, yeah, you're right. Actually, Nigeria is huge. I've been thinking that. I know that's correct. And so I think those and that's because what Charles said. He said that the intersection of cultures over time makes them better. And I just wish that people would be able to talk about current issues in that way, in interaction of cultures. And it's always tough interaction with cultures. I've experienced it, but it's not necessarily tough. It's not necessarily that one culture is out to get the other one. But I wish the whole conversation would be, okay, we're trying to navigate intercultural stuff. What can we learn from each other? How can we, how can we keep our identity while making our identity better, or because of somebody else or something like that. So
I actually wanted to pitch in here, if that's okay with everyone else. So I'll just go for it, because I was listening in from when Kevin in sales was I'm not sure verbatim what was said, but I guess we copying African American or Black American culture. And I think I left a comment in the live chat that said, for some people, we actually adopt facets of Black American culture because they can allow us a degree of mobility or elevation, depending on who you're speaking with. And I'll give a prime example using myself. I don't know if you guys can see my profile picture, but I am sporting a green do-rag. It was me adopting that facet of Black American culture, the do-rag. It was to allow me to walk outside because I didn't want to show my hairline, if that makes sense. And because it was normalized in the UK in some areas to wear a do-rag, it allowed me just to walk around freely, And I think Black American culture, due to the hypervisibility of American media, it's easy just to latch onto it, and it's safe. And I think that's the thing, is that it's safe. there are areas in my country, we have head covers, but because it's not as widely seen and normalized, it's not safe for me to adopt it in the UK. So I think I just wanted to provide that perspective as to why some people might adopt African American culture. And on another point, with regards to Nigeria and its, its growing presence in the world, I do wish that leaders in Africa manage their funds better. I think where Africa goes wrong is that we do accept aid or we do accept money, right? But where it goes wrong is that when aid is given to African leaders, it tends to be given as a lump sum. It isn't represented by manufacturing or industrial equipment. It would be better for the citizens, for example, to be given 400 million in form of industrial equipment. That way, we are ensured that the money actually went towards developing our infrastructure. But many times you actually look at a lot of this money and it goes missing. So that was just to provide a perspective on that note. But I'll just stop talking over there, and thank you for listening.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Uganda. So anyone wants to respond to him or something else? I think he made a very good point, though, as regards managing of funds and how the funds that has been given to Africa, how it ends up, because most of these monies just gets stolen by our leaders who are more interested in lining their pockets than in making the country good or making the country great. What Kevin and Insil said was also very, very important. If we could just fix the problem of corruption, if we could just fix our leadership problem, Nigeria is you're not going to recognize what Nigeria will be able to do, because there's a lot of entrepreneurial spirit in the country, but these things are held back because the leaders are just they're worthless. They're worthless, and they're just in for their pockets. They're in for their families. They're in for power, nothing else. Power, influence, and money is what motivates them, and the political system rewards them a lot, because Nigerian politicians, they earn so much, and they move from one position to the other where they keep earning and earning, even when the people are impoverished. So yeah, you're right on that point. Kevin himself is right on that point, and Mr. Uganda is also right in this point. So let's go ahead.
I was just gonna make a joke. I'm just gonna make a joke. I'm surprised with all the the stereotypes of Nigerian what's the word? Not criminals, but Nigerian scammers. That Nigerians have managed to scam their own government. So I'm just surprised that that's the case. So
that's a funny one, actually.
Yeah, I wanted to ask something about the landscape of Africa, if that was okay, with regards to why we're in the position we're in. That's only if it's okay with the host. Is that okay, Charles, if I speak briefly about that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Africa also goes wrong because we don't know how to protect what's sacred to us, and that is vital sectors of our economy. If we notice areas, let's say Korea, for example, they were able to actually develop very, very quickly because they adopted a protectionist mindset, and they did that with regards to their economy. Meaning that when they're developing a phone from the ground up, they're not going to allow the US to bring phones into Korea, because they understand that if you bring the best model of phone into a country, people are going to naturally gravitate towards that. Of course, we want to be nationalistic and have our allegiance with a country, but we are also people who latch onto utility. They understood that. So they just said, you know what, we understand the human psyche, so let's just stop the US, let's stop everyone else from bringing their phones in, and let's allow our own inventors to make our phones. Hence, they're able to develop laptops and all of this stuff and be self-sufficient within a short span of time. In Africa, we don't see that. We are expected to compete against the West while our markets are open, and it's completely egregious. something I noticed that Anne said in the comment section, she said that South Africa has been a huge disappointment since 1994. With regards to South Africa, a lot of people don't know that Nelson Mandela actually did play a part in exacerbating social inequalities in South Africa. And that's not, you know, to completely detract from his work. But when we look at the policies he was introducing, it was putting South Africans in a deficit. Namely, for example, let me just quickly try to remember. Oh yeah, so Mandela actually allowed international corporations to stake major claims in South African companies. Like, for example, Barclays acquired Absa, and that was South Africa's largest consumer bank, and that was in 2005. Iscor, the country's largest steelmaker, was sold to Lakshmi Mittal's LNM in 2004. There's a whole host of things that happened, but primarily it's because we didn't protect sectors of our economy and we allowed other people to come in and dominate. We have to do better in that respect. I think once we understand that we have to protect, once we understand that our best offense is our defense, then we're going to see Africa develop at a faster rate. But yeah, that's it. I'm sorry.
You have a point. You have a good point. I mean, we have to learn to protect what we have.
Thank you so much, guys. I have to leave. It's been great, though. Thank you so much.
No problem. All right, Jamin.
Can I ask a question for the panel?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think everyone on the panels would identify. I say black. I know some people have disagreements about what they identify with, but would you identify yourself as like African? Would you say you're proud to be an African? How do you identify yourself?
Well, as of at this stage, right, I would just say I'm British Nigerian, really. But if you're saying if I'm proud to be African, well, at this moment in time, no, not really, because I'm pretty sure you all know why. What's going on the continent? What really is there to be proud of? But that's just me. But anyone else can take over.
This is Kevin Itself. My parents are Nigerian, and I was born in the States. As I told Vincent the other day, I'm a little bit different from you guys. I've done a lot of psychedelic drugs. I've done DMT. I've done a lot of mushrooms. And these psychedelic drugs I was already an open-minded thinker anyway, growing up. But when I've done these drugs, well, I don't really consider them drugs because they're really not, because you don't get addicted to them. But they open up your mind and they open up synapses, or they connect. I guess they connect certain brain, synapses, and it makes you see the universe for what it really is. Listen, guys, none of us has a fucking clue about what's going on in reality. None of us do. We are on this rock floating in infinity, and we don't have a clue as to what is really going on. Nations and borders and race in the grand scheme of the universe mean absolutely nothing. Now, in terms of just being normal and not wanting you guys to think I'm a nutcase, well, I'm proud to be an African, I guess. But let's be completely honest. We are more than just Africans. We are citizens of the universe. We need to start thinking about the universe for what it is, thinking about what's out there in the universe, exploring. And I think that when we say we're Africans or we're Christian or whatever, we are closing a box in on ourselves. We need to think at a high, and I mean a high level. The beauty of and I'm gonna bring it back to home because I don't want to get too far in left field because I don't want to lose you guys. The beauty of what Nigeria is doing is that Nigerians are colonizing the planet, but without using means of force. Now, hear me out. Anywhere on the planet, you can go to China, you can go to Saudi Arabia, you can go to America, you can go to Canada. You will find pockets of Nigerians. And most of the times, those Nigerians are doing excellent. They are entrepreneurs. They have figured out how to matriculate through whatever system that they are in. So within 50 years, you're going to see a lot of Nigerians who are going to be at a higher level than even African Americans in the country, and they're going to be in positions of power. So whether they keep their heritage or not, you still have Nigerian American influence everywhere. And it's because I think Nigerians are thinking outside of the box. They're not just thinking about Nigeria. They're thinking about improving upon themselves in the greater scheme of this planet. If any of that just made any sense, just let me know.
No, that made sense. That made sense to me at least.
Okay.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So to me, I do understand your perspective. I actually completely respect it. I think where my concern is with that is that, you know, to have a population that is so diversely spread out, and you know they're doing their individual successes, I'm gonna need it to play into a wider strategy of things, because what's being mentioned with regards to individual victories and, you know, elevating in companies, for example, those can merely be tactics, you know, but tactics in and of itself, they're not effective. They provide short-term victories, but they only become something paramount when they feed into a wider agenda or strategy. So I actually do wonder, how does Nigeria plan to utilize its diaspora, is my question. And that will determine how much of a powerhouse they become in the following 50 years. But that was just my contribution to that. But I do value what you said. Absolutely.
No, you make a good point on that, because I suppose, Vincent, we've had conversations of how you would say Nigerian Americans more are white identifying than black identifying. So I always see the case of, like you're saying, is it a wider strategy, or is it just a case of they're just moving out of Nigeria just because they're under a tyranny that their country is under, and they don't really care about anything else other than, which is normal because we're human beings, let's be honest, just to do what we're doing and just put our head down, keep our head down, just make sure that we can survive for the next generation. So I get what you're saying. Is it a wider strategy? It doesn't seem like it. It's just a case of you need to leave for opportunities. That's how it is. It's not like a China, which seems like to us, an invading force, where it seems if the government themselves have instructed people to, you go here, you go there, you go here, we're going to colonize this place, and now rule. It just seems like a almost, what's the word? Not refugees, but economic asylum seekers.
Yeah.
Can I? I'm sorry to ball hog the conversation, but now that I'm really thinking about this, being in the States, I'm pretty sure you guys have never. Well, I know Vincent may have because he lives in Florida, but being in the States, I don't encounter a lot of Mexicans because I live in the Midwest, but I have been around Mexicans. Mexicans are a culture that is, and I'm going to be very honest with you guys, and if you guys get offended, well, that's just from the bottom of my heart how I feel. Mexicans are a cultural group, just like most Hispanics. They are a cultural group that is stuck in the year 1800, and the reason why is that they do not want to adapt. A lot of Mexicans, when they come here, just like with a lot of Puerto Ricans and a lot of other South Americans, they will still teach Spanish to their children. They will live in the same communities as other Hispanics. One of the reasons why you don't see a lot of Hispanic doctors, one of the reasons why you don't see a lot of Hispanic engineers, a lot of Hispanics in IT, is because they have failed to adapt to the cultural paradigm or the global paradigm shift, the shift of going into IT, etc. They're not explorers. They latch on to their culture and they don't want to change who they are. And that's why I think Mexico and a lot of Mexicans and other Hispanic groups are poor or uneducated. Whereas Nigerians, they will explore. They will try to matriculate within any culture and learn the language, this, that, and the other. Listen, I'm 35 years old. I see Mexican and other Hispanic born children. They don't even speak English. And for the love of God, I think to myself, mind you, I'm not oh yeah, because I don't know why these parents, a lot of these parents are born in America.
They're like South Asians in the UK, Vincent.
Yeah, and they will still teach their kids Spanish, and their kids will have a hard time in school. Their kids won't, and a lot of times these kids don't embrace education because it's not really stressed in their culture, and that's why Mexicans and other Hispanic groups are lagging behind, because they have this obsession with their culture that that basically just says that, oh, well, we're Hispanic or we're Mexican or we're Puerto Rican or whatever, and we're just going to be this and that's that. Whereas the beauty of Nigerians, the beauty of Indians, the beauty of a lot of Asian groups or other Asian groups is that, yes, I am this, but this is how the world really works. And I need to matriculate. Our families need to matriculate. That's why that's why when you think of Mexicans, you don't think of doctors. You don't think of engineers. You don't think of, and that's the truth because they fail to adapt. Yeah.
Blue collar workers like gardeners, right? Yeah, they're all Max.
I'm telling you, like there are Mexicans that I've seen who do not teach their kids English, and I'm like, why the fuck aren't you teaching your kids English in a English speaking fucking country? It's an odd thing to me, and it pisses me off because I'm not saying that Mexicans are inherently dumber than Nigerians because I don't think anybody is inherently more. Well, I think Germans are inherently better engineers, but nevertheless, though, it just bothers me that these people they come over here. Imagine this. Imagine if a whole bunch of Nigerians came over here and all they did was teach their kids Yoruba and they never taught them fucking English.
Yeah.
Nigeria. Thomas Sowell said something about that, and he mentioned it all depends on two things. So not Nigerians, the industries that they're in, it requires them to speak the dominant culture's language. For example, if it's a doctor and engineer, because you're going to be integrating with wider society. Whereas Thomas Sowell says you have a lot of groups, they retain their language even 3-4 generations down, because a lot of times like you said, they conclave themselves in their own communities. They have their little structure which only caters really to them. They may be business owners, or they may do things which doesn't require them, for whatever reason, the need for them to actually speak the host country's language. But sometimes I want to ask this question on it. Do you see that as pride in where they come from or stupidity?
It's stupidity.
Both.
You think it's pride, Vincent? And you said
I think it's pride. It is because they are. I'm going to be honest with you, Kevin, because here in Florida, right, my part is usually more Puerto Ricans, the Caribbean Latinos, and from Dominican Republic, right? I've noticed that with them, right, a lot of them, and they are born and raised in America, they struggle with English, and I was quite shocked as you're saying this now. If you want to carry on, I just want to make that point. Sorry.
Oh, so you think it's pride then? You don't think it's stupidity? You don't think if you're in an English-speaking country like the US, you don't think, especially as a young child, you need to speak the language? You don't think that's stupidity at that point?
Well, I did say both, because with them, they really strongly identify as being Puerto Rican or Dominican or Mexican. But I'm going to say it's a mixture of both. It is stupidity and it's also pride as well. I do, salute them there, but they have to integrate as well because it's predominantly English speaking. But from my interaction with them, they say, oh, well, soon Latinos are going to be the largest group and everyone's going to be speaking Spanish. And, as you can imagine, I was, rolling my eyes and giving them, quite weird look, like saying, I think not, but I'm carrying Kevin. Sorry.
Well, I hate to cut you off, Vincent, but I went to a magnet school. So you guys are from the UK, so I don't know if you have a magnet school, but magnet schools are pretty good. So I went to a magnet school for high school, and it was a really good school. It was half and half Hispanic. A lot of the kids were Puerto Rican, and when I went there, it's a level of pride, but to me, it's stupid pride. It's, I'm Mexican or I'm Puerto Rican or I'm whatever. And they didn't embrace education there. Like, they weren't good students. I can't put my finger on it exactly to conversate about it exactly. But for some reason in their culture, and I'm going to really get on the Mexicans, they don't embrace intellectualism. They don't embrace, as a whole, from what I've seen, they don't embrace that shit. They don't embrace medicine. They don't embrace, I don't know why they don't.
Well, hold on, Kevin, right? And this is something I've noticed about the Mexican in particular, because I've seen them, right? In terms of business, would you not agree that Latinos do at least significantly better than blacks here in America? Because
no way.
Well, hold on. I mean, they're always about family business. That's something I've noticed about them.
How about this, Vincent? Name me a Hispanic publication that is on the same level as Black Enterprise magazine that shows black businesses.
Well, I mean, capital tacos. I mean, I might be horribly wrong. I don't know. Is that
Well, I'm
not?
just asking because Black Enterprise before the internet, Black Enterprise was a magazine. It's still a magazine. Are you guys familiar with that in UK, Charles and Mr. Uganda and everybody else in the panel?
No, I'm not familiar with that.
Okay,
No.
so in America, we have what you call Black Enterprise. It's a magazine that has been around for over 100 years. It's a Black
Okay.
publication. This Black publication shows you Blacks who are entrepreneurs, Blacks who are business owners in this country. All I'm asking is that if Hispanics are on the same level, or if not better than Black Americans, where is their Hispanic publication of all their businesses? Where are
I would
their
say-
Hispanic billionaires? We have Black billionaires in America right now.
Right. I would say that with them, it's more so word of mouth, because again, right, they form their own enclaves, right? They form their own neighborhoods, and it's just, they say among themselves, So that's why I was just a little bit confused when but now that you have said this, now it makes more sense. I don't know if you want to address the comment in the comment section what Anne said. She said he or she.
Before we go further, Kevin B. Black,
Oh
B.
yeah, I'm
Black
so
is
sorry.
on the panel, but I haven't heard anything from him. So I'd like to hear from you.
No man, I was just here listening and enjoying the conversation, but I was just taking some issue with Kevin Scales' characterization of Latinos. I'm not sure, but I don't think those are any accurate characterization. I think those are some stereotypes that we sometimes lean into, which is just inaccurate about a group of people, especially Latinos. Because one of the issue is though, when Latinos enter the country, many of them came into the United States, I would assume, for jobs because of the economical situation, especially in Mexico. That's my understanding of it. So it would be a fair assumption to me that they are somewhat of the lower income scale bracket. So they would be, I would say, more impoverished when you compare to the rest of the population compared to their proportion. So I think it's unfair to compare them directly to Haitian, which
Um,
I think when Haitian enter the state, they enter at a different income bracket when compared to that of Latinos.
Can I also interject, right? Kevin, so you do also make a fair point because I was looking at the median average income, for per race and gender, right? Latinos, right? Latino men, they even did even less than Black women. I'm talking here in America, yeah. So I agree with you. Latinos, they earn significantly less than every other demographic. But
Kevin Black, respectfully, I don't know how many times you've come to the States. I don't have any stats in front of me. I don't have any peer-reviewed articles. However, I do have my eyes, and I have 36 years of my eyes. I have seen Mexicans, second-generation Mexicans, second-generation Puerto Ricans, third-generation, Venezuelans. They fucking fuse, and excuse me, they refuse to learn proper English. They refuse to speak the native tongue in this country. They refuse to get educated at a collegiate level. And what I'm again, why don't we see Hispanic doctors? Why don't we see
But
Hispanic?
there are
There
Hispanic
are. Trust me, I know that there are. I have friends.
I have some stats here that I want to read in terms of income by races. If you guys will allow me, let me just read it.
go ahead.
Median weekly earnings by race: Asians $1,400, whites $1,000, blacks $800, Latinos $750. That's one category. So from this category, the Asians are topping, the Latinos are at the bottom. Then for median household income by race, Asians 98,000, whites 76,000, Latinos 56,000, blacks 45,000. So it does seem here there's a flip where in the medium household income by race, the Asians are still topping, but the blacks are at the bottom, below the Latinos. So
Kevin themselves, what's your
I
response to that?
no, I don't. No, man. I don't think we were arguing or querying whether Latinos are at the lower or have less incomes comparing to that of Asian. I think that's something that we are already acknowledged. But I was just providing an explanation to as to why that is true. I don't think income level is indicative of a person overall performance. So that's just my opinion there, because
no,
we can all.
I wasn't comparing them to Asians. I was just giving an overview that yes, in some, like in this median weekly earnings by race, the blacks were doing slightly better than Latinos, but in the median household income by race, the Latinos were doing better than blacks. So I just wanted to provide some context for us
That's
to
Latinos per head have more people in their
Yeah,
house.
I was just
Well, I
about
was
to
just
say
gonna
that.
say,
I was-
Or in their house, so that would
yeah,
make
they
sense.
do. They do exactly. I was just
Like
gonna
the
say,
South Asians in here, like South Asian in the UK, they have,
yeah,
they have like 3
the same.
generations in their own household. It's like
right,
what?
right.
Whereas
Exactly.
black
I was
people do that sort of stuff.
What? Yeah, White Mass, you said it perfectly well. But I just wanted to ask question to you, White Mass. Right, you said the South Asians in the UK, right? Do they also have the same circumstance? Like, you know, when we were saying, well, when Kevin and Sel said that Latinos in the US don't seem to adopt the English language, is it can the same as well be said for British South Asians?
Slightly, yeah. There's
Oh, really? Oh,
for
okay.
example, I say Indians are a bit different because they go into engineering, they go
Right,
into IT, so they'll need to learn English, and they do, but you can still
And
hear
the
the
NH
twang.
right.
However, some of them was like Bangladeshis and other ones, especially like in the northern parts of England, it's like a conclave where some of them don't even speak English after being born in England for quite a long time, or their English
Are
is
you serious?
it may be not as bad as what I'm hearing from Kevin Sales, but I've experienced it where because they have their own businesses, because their communities cater towards them and them,
Right.
they even like their women, they don't even speak English because they have never needed to.
Right.
So
Okay.
so yeah,
Well,
maybe
then-
not as bad as what I'm hearing from Kevin Sales, but I see the correlation.
But
Well,
let's
then,
not, let's not forget why we're why we were talking about this in the first place. We were talking about how the reason why you won't see Mexico ever becoming a real power is because of that reason and reason alone. They box themselves in with their culture, whereas Nigerians don't do that. So let's not forget where the whole topic was coming from in the first place.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I'll address that later in the white because I want to talk to you more about that. But yeah,
let me say something. Kevin and Sales.
Yeah.
You're not comparing Latinos with the general black population. You're just comparing them with Nigerians, right?
Really, I wasn't trying to compare any cultural group. I was just pretty much saying why one cultural group would never.
It's okay. I'm just trying to let's have a better context. Because
there's no comparison between Mexico and Nigeria. Let's just be completely honest. There's no comparison. Nigeria is a better nation state. It just is compared to Mexico. So there's no comparison at all. It's like comparing an NBA team to a high school basketball team. Nigeria is just a better country altogether.
Are you saying this because you have Nigerian heritage?
No, I'm saying that because it's just a fact. It's just an honest to God's fact. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, right, is this on the internet? Like, is it possible to research and find this out, or
no? The way you can research and find it out is just look at both societies with your eyes. Look at Mexicans and look at Nigerians, or look at Mexicans and look at other groups of people overall. I mean, there's a stark difference between Cambodians and Japanese. You don't need to have stats. You can just look at maps. You can look at the cities, and then you can look at a city. You can look at Bangkok, which is in Canada. I mean, Cambodia. Then you can look at Tokyo, Japan, and you can just see the difference. There's a difference between Mexico and Nigeria. It's just a difference. One place is better.
I take it that you have been to Nigeria, right? So have you been to Mexico, or how do you?
I've been to Mexico, but what I'm trying to tell you is that it doesn't even necessarily mean going to these places. It's just that, my whole argument is that, why some cultures are better than others and why some cultures become superpowers. And it's because again, Nigerians tend to go throughout the world. Mexicans don't. And that's what I was pretty much trying to say. I wasn't trying to dog Mexicans. I was just saying that you don't see Mexicans in Southeast Asia. You don't see Mexicans in Japan, but you see Nigerians, because Nigerians have an
Entrepreneurial
expansionist.
spirit.
Yeah,
Right.
entrepreneurial spirit, exploring
Right.
spirit. They have an expansionist spirit. And the other day, that's why I was saying Nigeria probably needs to conquer maybe like neighboring countries for expansion
Vincent,
purposes.
Vincent, please,
Yeah.
can you can I exit you so that Mike can come in? For a
Yeah,
few?
sure, of course. That's fine. Yeah.
All right, great, thanks. Go ahead, guys. Go ahead, guys. Go ahead.
Hey, how's it going?
We're great. Welcome, Mike.
I think Kev was in the middle of something. I don't know if he's finished or he wants to continue.
Oh, well, no, I was just pretty much trying to make the point that, again, the original point was why, I believe that Nigeria will become a superpower. And it's because Nigerians, hold on to culture, but they also will adapt to other people's culture as well and integrate that within their own culture. Whereas Mexicans don't. You don't see multilingual Mexicans, but you see multilingual Nigerians. I've met Nigerians from Nigeria who speak 7 or 8 damn languages.
I think you need to meet more Mexican, to be honest. I think your generalization.
Can I ask you a question? How many Mexicans are multilingual compared to Nigeria?
But I'm thinking,
but being multilingual doesn't mean that your country is going to do
I'm
it.
making is,
But being
you hearing me?
multilingual means that you have the ability to adapt, the ability to think in another person's culture as
Right.
well. If you know Japanese, you could think like a Japanese.
But are you
want
talking about like the country being better off economically, or like what do you mean?
Listen, the original. Okay, I don't want to stray away from the original.
I get what you're saying. Like you're saying how like Nigerians are industrious, like stuff like that. But that usually applies to like certain tribes, and those that are like that tend to immigrate out of the country.
Mike, can I ask you a question?
Yo, what's up?
Is Germany better than Bosnia?
Yeah, because they're more industrious.
Right.
It's not
okay.
You know.
Okay. Is Cambodia better than Japan?
No, I get what you're trying to say, but Nigeria isn't more industrious than Mexico. It's actually the other way around.
Are you sure?
Mexico just has a drug problem, so it's more dangerous.
Yeah, of course. I mean,
are you sure Nigeria is not as industrious?
No, because a lot of the goods we get here in the States are made in Mexico and China.
Name me a billionaire Mexican that is in oil right now.
In oil?
Yeah, name me a
billionaire. Oil.
Okay, well, oil is a major industry
right, but
we're talking about global. We're talking about global scales of economy. Oil is one of them. Name me a major oil tycoon in Mexico. It probably is a whole bunch of them.
I get what you're trying to say. Like, yes, there are a lot of rich people in Nigeria, but the one thing about Nigeria is that the wealth inequality is huge. So yeah, you can have a group of people that are doing well because 40% of the population isn't doing well. That creates a security. That's why they're having problems in North Nigeria, because just because the South is doing well doesn't mean that the North is going to do well, and that creates problems for the country. Nigeria is on a tipping point, pretty much.
I bet you within the next 25 years, the northern part of Nigeria will be eradicated of that Islamic nonsense.
I don't know, bro. Radical Islam, it's hard to get rid of it.
Yeah,
something you only get rid of it through improving the area, pretty much.
Yeah, something I wanted to add on to this is that I don't like the degree to which Nigeria is on a tipping point shouldn't be underestimated. Like the strife has really elevated in the past decade. It's gotten to the point where they're not even able to manage the overgrazing of a particular tribe's cattle. And with regards to the indoctrination, it's so deep. Like some of these kids will never even see school, but they've already been like indoctrinated with such beliefs as to only be loyal to extremism. I don't know what Nigeria is able to do, because it needs to have a good military, but it's also a liability to invest in the military because you don't know whether they're going to be indoctrinated or not. So it's like, you know, like that the protectionist ideology that Nigeria needs is also going to be undermined by the fact that this extremist ideology is allowed to thrive. And even with that, the military power of Nigeria is basically centralized in the north. So Nigeria needs a major, major redress, because all of this industrious, attributes that are attached to Nigerians, it means nothing if your home nation state is in a state of upheaval.
Right, and that was my original point, pretty much, because at any point, there's a security risk because people from the north, terrorist attacks, jihad. So you pretty much have to improve the north if you want to improve the whole country.
Well, all of Mexico needs to be improved because they have major drug problems with the cartels.
Right, I agree with that. However, certain parts of Mexico are doing well, like Mexico City. Like it's more. I would say that the problem in Nigeria is worse than in Mexico. For one, because there's low literacy rates in the north. Like Nigeria has a literacy rate of like 50%. So if the north, the kids, they grow up poor and they can't read, they're more likely to side with radical Islam and Wahhabism, because that's what they identify with. So it's like a feedback loop. So unless they fix that, it's only going to get worse. That's worse than the drug cartels, because it's not like a huge thing over there. It's like I don't know how to explain it. There's a more share of the population in Nigeria that falls under that umbrella of security risk than in Mexico, and that has more of an effect on the country, honestly. Which is why you find a lot of Nigerians that leave the country. Like a lot of Igbos leave Nigeria and they immigrate to the US, the UK.
Can I say something real quick? Let me say something about this last point Mike just made about the Igbos. The Igbos are everywhere, even in the north. That there's instability. The Igbos have massive businesses in the north of Nigeria. So they go everywhere. The issues with Nigeria currently is the failure of the political leadership, especially with the current president, who I don't know, he just doesn't care, if that's what I'll put it. He doesn't care that he's like Emperor Nero sitting down on the hill while the city is burning to the ground. He doesn't care. And this was a man who was voted in on the grounds of, okay, he has military experience, he should be able to tackle this insurgency, but it's just getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And this year has really, 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 really been terrible. Of all the years that we've had this insurgency problem, at least before it was limited to a few states up north, Maiduguri mostly, but then it has started morphing into banditry where they just kidnap people, kidnap students, and demand for ransom. And I don't know, it's you guys have a point when you say the north, if the issues of the north are not resolved, it's a big problem. It is a big problem. But once the issues of the north are resolved, the potentials for Nigeria is limitless. It's actually limitless. I can't speak so much for Mexico. I don't know so much about Mexico, but I do know that that drug problem is there. But to what extent is pervasive is what I cannot say. So I can't really draw a conclusion as per Nigeria, Mexico, which is worse. Nigeria still has a lot of productivity. 60% of the manufacturing in the West African sub-region or the ECOWAS sub-region comes from Nigeria, even in terms of drug manufacturing and other manufacturing. Nigeria exports a lot of manufactured goods to many African nations. In the east of the country, there's a place called, in this Abia State, Aba. There you can get almost anything fabricated for you, almost anything. You see your so many things in the West, maybe clotheslines, maybe a lot of things are fabricated in that place, Aba, in Nigeria. Yes, because of technology and all that, may not meet up to the highest standards, but those things can be refined. But yes, there is a lot of production that is going on in Nigeria as well. So that's why I want to just chip in.
And I think just to add to that, I think I'm not sure. I may be incorrect, but I don't think Buhari even wanted to serve another term as a president. And you're
He
right.
did. Is there any Nigerian leader that doesn't want to serve? They want to die on the seat.
Okay, yeah, I can take your word for that. Yeah, thank you for that. But yeah, I think I'll just add something here in that really and truly, the most vital resource of Africa is actually the people. So it actually makes me proud that both you and Kevin in sales do discuss the industriousness and the productiveness of Nigerians, because in as much as the land has wealth, in form of raw materials, etc., it's the people who are able to transmute that into products. So if we can somehow get all of this Nigerian diaspora back into Nigeria to make it great, it would be immensely powerful. But we do need to sort out the security situation in northern Nigeria.
Yeah.
But it's nothing that can't be sorted, because indoctrination is a social issue. So what we really need to do is to encourage a cultural revolution in the north, so that they're more for Nigeria than the extremist intent.
In terms of the insurgency in the north, there's a lot of foreign infiltration, especially from Niger, Chad, Cameroon, from a lot of northern Nigeria. You get, so even most of those fighters, many of those fighters are foreigners. Many of the fighters are foreigners, and so the indoctrination is part of it, but it doesn't explain everything. The borders are porous in the north, so a lot of weapons can pour in, a lot of people can pour in, because many of them have similar languages with the northerners, Hausa, Fulani. So it's easy for them to just blend into the population. Even down south here, there's a gate man in my estate. He's from Niger. He doesn't have passports. He's living in Nigeria, and there are many of them like that living in Nigeria. Once they can speak the Hausa language or the Fulani language, they come in. So the indoctrination is part, but it doesn't account for most of the insurgent fighters. Many of them are foreign.
And also the Gulf Arabs, a lot of them funded terrorism on the continent.
Yeah,
like you guys know the Palma attack. So I was looking into it, like in Mozambique. It was actually some Somalis came down. They indoctrinated some poor farmers in Mozambique, and they probably got funding from abroad to take over the oil facility in Mozambique. It's crazy. So pretty much, you not only have to improve North Nigeria, but you have to make it in a way to where foreign influence is minimized as well.
One thing I want to ask, and just sort of make this point, is this: do you know how I think really the best way, it may not be the right way, of being a dominant force is by conquering, in terms of either from a military standpoint, but in particular in terms of transmitting your culture, language. Now, we mentioned how a lot of Nigerians, they travel to different parts of the world, but they would then learn the host nation's language, which means in turn they would also take on their culture. Do you think that could be a problem when it comes to domination? Because if a Nigerian in Canada won't see himself as a Nigerian, maybe still a Canadian, or a Nigerian American won't see himself a Nigerian but an American, if you're in Spain, you see yourself as a Spaniard, would that be an issue? Because instead of retaining a bit of your cultural traits, you will still see yourself as part of the wider demographic. So you won't be able to come together because you'll still be separated by a tribe of nations. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I think I'll just interject here to say that it's important to have a solid grasp or grapple of your identity before you start to even think of building. Fragmented individuals are a liability, and they're prone to be subjected to so many tug of wars, if you understand what I'm saying, because they exist in the liminal space where they don't know who they are, and they could fall either way. And that is an issue. It did concern me that, it does concern me that I see a lot of Black African individuals like myself in the UK, that we don't have a thorough grasp of our identities, because we're just being formed through this weird space in Britain. That has to change, because if we can't recognize ourselves completely with back home, then we're not really serving our countries back home. That's an issue. That is an issue. And
one thing I was going to say, I'm sorry to cut you, because Vincent was mentioning this, because he thought he could do that, but when he went back to Nigeria, he was treated like a white man. So one of the things I was going to say is could that even be possible when the moment you leave that nation, you are seen as the same as another?
Well, with what Vincent went through, I go through the same things. When I go back to Uganda, I'm viewed as a Muzungu, and that translates to a foreigner. So,
do you still have allegiance? Do you still have allegiance, even though you know they call you that name? And I don't know if they're doing it to be just jokey. I don't know if they're actually just messing with you because you sound different. You know how it is. When people sound different, they take the piss out of you. I get that, but do you see that hindering the allegiance?
Yes and no. And the reason I can't give a determinative answer is because I'm not a fully actualized person. As you can probably gauge from the way I speak, I am quite young. It's something that is really case dependent. Like, I don't see myself sacrificing my British passport if Uganda's in trouble. That's what I do know. I realize the value that the British passport gives me. So if Uganda calls me back, or if there's a moment of instability where they need me, I don't have an assurance that I'll be able just to jump back. That's the truth. And I feel like the human aspect of us, we do want to be safe. As much as we want to be seen as heroic, the fact is that when situations come when you're tested, we can't always be sure that we're going to, go to the side we ought to. I can't give an assurance of that. So therefore, my allegiance to Uganda is questionable. I could tell you right now, yes, I'm for Uganda. Uganda's my home. I have my grandparents are in Uganda. You understand? But when it comes to reality, when I'm being tested, how much will I be able to hold up to my statements?
No, it's true. It's a fair point. And that's one of the reasons why I do think when it comes to just Africa in general, one of the reasons why, even though it become a superpower in name, it still won't be the same as other civilizations, because there's so many different tribes in a lot of African countries. I mean, you can go to one African nation and they speak about 100 different languages. So already you're divided just by a language, where in most like European nations, they only speak one language. In England, it's only English. In France, it's only France. In Germany, it's only German. You may have some bordering nations because of how it is. Eastern Europe, like Switzerland, they speak different, but for the most part, it's one language, kind of one culture. And historically, they've dominated by the sword. Therefore, they've not only had their culture being the dominant force, everyone else acquiesced to their culture, and therefore you now are, you feel part of their establishment as the other way around, which I don't know whether it'll work as opposed to a global superpower. You'll just be amalgamated into US, Canada, UK, Australia, New Zealand, and you just say, no, I'm a Brit, no, I'm an Aussie, no, I'm an American. So, yeah.
What do you guys think of the Jews? I mean, they're not a dominant let's say superpower, but they're very influential. And one of the ways they've been able to maintain their influence is that they are very connected with each other all around the world. So they form like a super economy around the world. You don't see them at the forefront, but they're at the background. They have a lot of influence. Don't you think Nigerians can adopt that model as well?
I think Nigerians already do this, because the main ingredients are one, maintaining close social networks within your tribe, two, focusing on education, and 3, focusing on a trade. Nigerians already technically do this, especially Igbos. So,
yeah, speaking on behalf of an American, the Jews in America are extremely, and I mean extremely influential. They are at the height of success in almost every facet of industry within the country, particularly in film as well. And I think they probably are like the number one in film, in the film industry. They have a way of not being at the front, but they are at the front. and Nigerians definitely can be like that as well. But the one thing about Jews is that what I've noticed, because I've, like I said, I've been around a lot of different people. They're not like Hispanics. They're not like pro-blacks in the country. They don't put their religion or their culture in your face. They practice that shit at home, but when they leave their doors, it's about business. So yeah, you may have a Hasidic Jew, and again, this is just my opinion, but this is what I've seen as well. You may have a Hasidic Jew. They may be super religious at home, but when they leave, they don't come out wearing, their curly hair down. I can't think of what they properly call it. They don't. I mean, again, they operate in terms of not yarmulke, but they do wear their yarmulkes. But I'm talking about when they curl their hair up too. But I think the problem with a lot of other cultures, like Indians and a lot of I don't necessarily see Nigeria. I don't see West Africans doing this. But the problems that I see with a lot of Indians is that Indians will wear their garb out in public. Like they will wear it almost everywhere, even at work sometimes. And a lot of times it's like, why are you doing that? This is America. I know you're free to do what you want to do, but it's not the, I don't want to say safe, but it's not the smart thing to do. That makes any sense. Whereas Jews don't do it. They're more covert. Like they'll wear a suit and a tie when they come out. They don't have to wear, their yarmulke all the time or whatever thing that identifies them as Jews. Excuse me.
So something I wanted to add is that, in particular with Israel and Jews, they've gone through such lengths and deliberate lengths at that to really consolidate a national identity that does have connections to their religion, though as Kevin in Sales did acknowledge, they don't openly rep it. Even with regards to their names and stuff, like I think there was something called the Names Law or the Names Act in 1956, and it's when Israel was basically allowed to give the citizens a whole bunch of new Hebrew names, and they were allowed to really bask in this Jewish culture and all link up and all like just have an identity that unified them. When you go to African countries, we're still dealing with tribal models where people still cling to the tribes and kingdoms. And in as much as we do rep our countries, we're more bound by our tribal affiliations. We don't have the same sort of essence as other people. And with Jewish people, they have the spirit to take and to dominate. And they play the game differently. Like they do it economically and they play it in the back door. I'd like to see more of us play the game smarter as well, not be so much loud and announce moves on social media, but to really maneuver behind the scenes, keep a close network, and just really keep about how you do business. I would like to see that more from us. That's it.
Yeah.
So are you guys saying that tribalism is bad for Africa, or like what?
I'll interject here to say it's twofold, because there are areas where tribalism is very evident, though it's not put in social media. I could name a few areas, but I'd rather not, because it's really an Africa issue, right, or a sub-Saharan African issue. But one thing I will say is that it's also areas of tribalism that allows people to stay within their tribes. Like some people will have such a strong hold of their tribe and they will reject other tribes so much that they won't even imagine mixing out of their tribe. And that even defends them against mixing out with other racial groups. And that allows them to uphold the integrity of their tribe. So it will always be, it's a spectrum depending on the environment you're talking about,
The reason I'm asking is because of, in particular, outsiders like to use tribalism to pretty much pit certain African tribes against each other to pretty much just, for example, in Congo, a lot of their mines are owned by rebels or probably supported by outsiders. So that means that the government itself can even generate revenue from their own mines because the rebels sell those minerals on the black market, so outsiders get it for cheap. So it's like tribalism has been used against African countries or
Can I
Africans in general for
can I ask
ages.
can I ask the panel a question?
Yeah.
Could anybody name to me a white tribal group right now?
They existed. That was the point I was trying to build up to. Even like China during the Warring States period, they pretty much fought each other. But at one point, you have to realize that the world sees you all as the same. So it's like we might as well just.
I know. I was going to say tribe. When I hear tribe, I hear backwards. When I hear that.
So the reason why I asked that question is because guys, I have a lot of fucking bachelor's degrees, and one of them is African Studies. And I went to a school in the Midwest called Kent State. It's a farm school, but when I was working on that African Studies degree, along with many other degrees, I was one of the most controversial students within that particular college in terms of the African Studies program. And I used to get chased out of class sometimes. And there were sometimes like the professor had to escort me out of class because my friends threatened to, jump me because some of my articles, I wrote a paper on the inferiority of West Africans or Africans as a whole because of tribalism. Tribalism keeps Africa behind. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous on so many scales. If tribalism really worked, you would not have had a country or a continent, that was conquered completely. You had this entire continent conquered. So what did all that tribal shit do? I mean, what did that shit do?
So even when the West first started popping up, like around the 1600s, the Dutch were pretty much going around the world with Dutch missionaries and Dutch traders. When they showed up to Japan, the Japanese daimyos, they noticed that the Dutch were trying to use the Japanese Christians who got converted to pretty much divide and conquer the country. So they they killed the Christians, and they pretty much had an isolation policy for like 100 years. Whereas in Africa, the leaders pretty much just allowed the Dutch traders in, and they pretty much went around converting different kingdoms. And as time passed, they would play them against each other. It's insane.
Yeah. So, obviously that, just recently, within the last 30 years, you still had tribalism to the point where genocide was committed in Rwanda, which we all know about. The Tutsis and are you guys familiar, Vincent? Yeah, Tutsis and the Hutus. Yeah. And you had some estimates believe it was just 500,000. Some estimates believe it was 1 million. But nevertheless, it was ridiculous in terms of the slaughtering that occurred because of historical implications after colonialism. Tribalism to me is one of the last primitive things that need to be exterminated from the continent of Africa itself. And truth be told, a lot of the languages need to be exterminated as well. Look, let me ask you guys a question. Why isn't there thousands of languages in Europe?
You say, why aren't they?
Why are there not? Why aren't there thousands of European languages?
Oh, that's because of conquest.
Yeah, the Romans pretty much.
Yep, they conquered the world, or the European known world, and they killed primitive European groups. Now, I'm not saying was it right, no, but look at the achievement of the Roman. Look at their achievements. Look at their, they still have look at their antiquity right now. They still have the goddamn Colosseum that is standing there. It's not intact, but it was made thousands of years ago because obviously the Romans were a superior white group. And they looked at those tribal groups as inferior, and they're keeping us behind. Let's either you do this or we're wiping you out. So I think that a lot of, and I hate to say this, but a lot of languages need to be wiped off the face of the earth in Africa. That shit is stupid.
So I'm going to interject here. I'm trying to think of how I should go about it in terms of order. I think tribes, it's an ingenious thing, and not in the way that you guys think. It's actually an ingenious way of keeping people separated, right? I do think that before colonialism, and this is my own suspicions, I do believe we were already compromised before colonialism, and we were already being exploited. Then when Europeans came, we were further exploited. And when the European colonizers came, they actually appealed to our leaders who exploited us. So there was a degree of collaboration. It wasn't wholly that the Europeans came and oppressed everyone. In many instances, you'll find that they were communicating with some individuals, and they were working in tandem to oppress others. Something I also wanted to know is that borders are also an ingenious way of keeping people separated. I read a paper, and it was a linguistic study, and it was also looking at people's attitudes towards language. My father's tribe actually comes from the border, from the Ugandan border with Rwanda, and the ethnic groups are similar. And the area is actually bordered by Congo, Rwanda, and obviously we're in Uganda, right? However, due to our borders and our separate experiences, we don't even recognize each other as the same people, or we actively look to separate ourselves from people who were once our own a few hundred years ago. For example, one of the tribes that I come from is called Bafumbira, and they are actually a mix of Tutsi, Hutu, and in part Pygmy groups. And we actually have similar people who are in Eastern Congo and in Rwanda. However, because we were colonized by England, England, right? We actively, in this linguistic study, we actively try to separate ourselves from people who are once our own, because we seem to have had it better than they did. So I think that there's a lot going on here, but I think our psychology is being manipulated, and it's the separation, it's the borders, it's exploiting differences and different experiences to bring about this very, very apathetic culture that exists in Africa, which is why you see people who don't really see it for other tribes. I do agree that we need to perhaps, and this is my own opinion, there does need to be a work of distortion whereby some of the larger tribes are going to have to absorb the smaller tribes and form a new national identity. And that will help extinguish some of the differences we have. That's my own opinion. And to be fair, ethnic distortion has been going on in Africa for a very, very long time, which is why some tribes that might have existed when the Europeans came no longer exist. It might not have been that the Europeans completely eradicated the groups, but they were actually absorbed into existing larger groups. So that might need to happen a little bit more spread for us to alleviate some of the issues. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, like each region could have a lingua franca, like East Africa could have Swahili. West Africa could have whatever major languages are popular over there, population-wise. That sort of thing. That's how it should be. That would lower tribalism within Africans themselves, but increase nationalism in Africa, if that makes sense.
I want to engage with his point about Swahili in particular, because I was reading about Uganda in particular regarding Idi Amin's reign. And some things that people don't know about Idi Amin is that he was actually working towards what scholars call Swahilization during his rule. However, because he didn't account for the fact that he was going to be chased away, his efforts to bring about this unification language actually made things worse, because, as you guys would know, he was actually oppressing indigenous Ugandans, and he was like having torture chambers. People started to associate Swahili with the oppression. So to work with what you're saying here, I think the language that has to be introduced has to be one that can be implemented without the need for trauma. And pretty much it has to be something that everyone can agree represents the wider community, the wider interest of perhaps East Africa. But I don't know if Swahili will work per se, but yes, I do agree that there needs to be a language that encourages interaction, because that's what Idi Amin was going for when he tried to introduce Swahili. But he didn't account for the fact that he would basically be put into exile, and his language endeavors would basically be plummeted because people wouldn't want to associate themselves with the language that was pushed by the oppressor.
There's no language that has ever dominated a nation which hasn't been done through oppression. If you look at English, French, Spanish through South Americas, all of it has been done via some form of oppression. The reason why African nations have these, not only European languages, but even Arab languages, is because of oppression. There's no other way of doing it. You will never get a situation where everyone would agree, yeah, let's ditch our language and go for this language. Without oppression, you will never get it. In the history of mankind, we've never seen it.
Right, but
So,
it's I'm sorry.
let me just come in a bit. See, I agree with what Mr. Uganda said, and I agree very strongly with what White Matter says. The last point you made, that you will never get people to adopt a language without some sort of force, and it seems like this call for unification of languages in Africa is coming a little too late because of the era that we're living in the sense that the most effective way of doing that would not be allowed in this age. You can't forcefully make people adopt a certain language. And another thing, adopting the language, a certain language, doesn't make people forget their ethnicity. It doesn't even make them forget their own tribal languages. The North is a prime example. Many of us in the South, when we look at Northerners, we just call them Hausas, but they're not all Hausas. They all speak Hausas. They all speak Hausa. Most of them speak Hausa, but they also have their tribal languages. So although Hausa is a lingua franca, just like English is in most of the country, they still have their own tribal languages. So they can still make that distinction and tell you that I may be speaking Hausa, but I'm not an Hausa man. I may be speaking Hausa, but I have my own language. I have my own culture that they still identify with. Tribalism in Africa is a big problem. It gives me big headaches, as in huge headaches, because part of the problem we're having currently with our president is that despite the fact that he's obviously incompetent, people from his tribe would not see anything wrong in what he's doing, or most of them would rather have him there because he's from their tribe, rather than have someone who is competent who is not from the tribe. You get it? So when people from the East are clamoring for an Eastern president, it's not as if the Eastern president, when he gets there, he's going to do so fantastic for the Eastern part of the country. Or when people from the South are clamoring for a Southern president, it's not as if when he gets there, he's going to do so wonderful for the people of the South. They are all politicians, and they are like a class of their own. They are like a race of their own, the politicians. They only do things to benefit themselves. But a particular region feels okay, feels safe, so long as they believe, or so long as they have their own tribesman at the position of power. So it's a big problem. It's a big problem, and I don't know how we're going to solve that problem, but it is a big problem.
Who has the hottest women on the continent, by the way? Just side note. Let's keep it real. I think Sudanese women.
Really, Kevin? Really?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think I made a live stream about Sudanese women. I think Sudanese women are some of the most beautiful women on the planet, and they're super tall.
Women.
I beg your pardon?
Vincent, please let me take you out again for someone else. Sorry.
That's all right. I'll drop off. Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen some I went to Kent State. I already mentioned that. And some of the Liberian girls who are actually from Liberia were smoking fucking hot too. But I think there's a reason why a lot of Liberian women are hot. They are a mixture of different African ethnicities. And I think that's one of the reasons why. But yeah, I just wanted to, put that in as a side note to the conversation. But,
Bo, welcome.
Well, I was hoping the other brother didn't have to jump off because he kind of like spoke to something I was about to say. I think it's back and forth listening, but I wanted to speak to what he was talking about, Mexico and the reason Nigeria is going to be on a world power. I think he's not taking into account the fact that people learn different languages due to necessity for the most part. And what you see with a lot of Mexicans and Spanish people in America is that they don't learn the language because they live within communities where they don't have to. Like there's certain parts of America where you don't have to speak English. And matter of fact, the burden is on you to speak Spanish. So I think with Nigerians, they don't really have that same luxury as a Spanish speaking person would over here. So they're forced to pretty much adopt the language wherever they go. It does make them more adaptable to different situations, because you're probably more likely to see Nigerians in a wider, because most Spanish people pretty much congregate within themselves. But I don't see how that'll translate to necessarily Nigeria being a superpower, because their people are scattered around the world.
Well, that was Bo. That was Kevin Sells. That was me that primarily has said the how Nigeria will become a superpower because they are scattered throughout the diaspora. I mean, again,
Go ahead, Kevin.
Again, I respect I respect what you're saying.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Okay. Anyone else wants to jump in? Mike.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, what's up?
Yeah, we can hear you.
I don't know if Charles, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, because Kev was speaking, you see.
Oh, Charles, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to address what Bo was saying. I hate to be brutal, but the reason why Mexico and other South American countries are shitholes is because of that reason and that reason alone. We are going into a different civilization, which is a civilization 1. You're going to have to think globally, and you don't see Mexicans, you don't see a lot of South Americans going throughout the globe because of that reason alone. Nigeria is going to be a superpower because they have the ability to adapt to other cultures, and they also have the ability to go into the hard sciences and the hard technical fields. That's the difference. I mean, you got to think, Nigeria was just a colony, 60 fucking years ago, and look at the achievements that I mean, granted, there's a lot of shit going on in Nigeria now, but look at all the achievements that they've been able to do 60 years after colonization, or the end of colonization. I'm sorry.
I'm wondering where you're getting your facts from, because have you ever been to Mexico? Because I've been to Mexico. And I mean, outside of what you see on TV, Mexico, especially Mexico City, is a pretty advanced city. In Mexico, America ships a lot of their manufacturing to Mexico, so Mexico's GDP is probably, I would say, triple that of Nigeria, and it's almost not even a comparison.
Their GDP is double.
Double.
It's like 2.3, but you could be right. It could have tripled. What I saw recently was like 2 point something, but I think that was like a 2017 estimate or whatever. Again, Mexico was never under colonization. Now, they were conquered by the conquistadors, but they were never under. Listen, Nigeria literally was under colonization up until 1962, 63.
1960,
right? So the thing is that you have a country that is just 60 years old. It's just 60 years old, and look at what Nigeria has become. Nigeria will become a superpower. It's just inevitable. Mexico will not become a superpower. Just like many South American countries would not become a superpower. It's just not going to happen for those countries.
I gotta disagree. Like,
they're not expansionists.
I gotta
okay, how about this? Name me a superpower that's a superpower without expansionist or expansion.
I gotta disagree, because if you look at the Middle East, like this whole problem of North Nigeria, that's too big of a problem. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but you can't just make radical Islam disappear. Like, they have so much resolve and they believe in that stuff with such passion that that shit can't just go away. You pretty much have to make poverty go away in North Nigeria for them to get out of this situation, you know? And I don't think that's possible unless, you know, some miracle happens. That's just my opinion, but, you know.
Bo, you there?
To your answer, though, Switzerland's a superpower, and they've never been an expansionist country.
I don't think Switzerland's a superpower.
You don't believe Switzerland's an economic superpower?
They're not a superpower.
I don't think that they are a superpower.
They don't have a military. NATO.
Define what you mean by superpower, because I was going to that will define how I answer the question. What do you mean by superpower?
Okay. I guess a superpower is a state with a dominant position on a global scale. If you sit back and think about it, when's the last time you met a Swiss in your country that was building industry? I guess I don't know. I mean,
Switzerland is an economic superpower without a doubt. It can't even be debated. And the reason you don't see a lot of Swiss in other countries is because they thrive in their country. People that come from superpowers, productive countries, tend not to migrate as much.
Now, here goes the thing. Here goes the definition of a superpower. This is done through the combined means of economic, military, technological, political, and cultural strength, as well as diplomatic and soft power influence. That's a superpower. So the thing is that I've never heard somebody from Switzerland. I never even heard of a Switzerland. I mean, somebody from Switzerland or whatever. I just never have. I never met a person from Switzerland. I don't know about their politics, but I know about the politics of Nigeria. Sorry, go ahead.
Outside of the military, everything else, Switzerland would be considered a superpower. Switzerland clicks off every other box except for military, probably.
Not really. They're just a commercial hub. They don't have influence outside of their borders, outside of the fact that they handle other people's money and they make chocolate. That's about it.
It's a welfare state, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Brother, it's the financial hub of the world.
Right, but that doesn't mean they're a superpower. They're just a financial hub.
All right, brother.
Well, I mean, you said that they were a superpower. What are their imports, exports?
I don't want to hog the mic. I'd rather somebody else take it. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're
saying.
You're saying that they're very rich, but being rich doesn't mean that you're a superpower, because a superpower can put their will on Switzerland if they wanted to.
And Switzerland influences the world economically. You just seen the president in Ghana having to go to Switzerland and negotiate.
But
I mean, countries from all around the world. I don't know.
All right. So by your definition of a superpower, Hong Kong and Singapore are also superpowers. By your definition of a superpower,
Hong Kong has now been absorbed within mainland China. So no,
right, but it's still a financial hub, just like.
But Singapore. Hong Kong is no longer an independent country. Hong Kong has been absorbed by China.
Bo, can I say this real quick?
But in my opinion, and I would think it would be, I would have thought it wouldn't have been nothing to debate. Switzerland is an economic superpower, point blank, period. Right. In my opinion,
I agree.
So but I agree with Bo. I agree with Bo in that regard. I think that they wield a lot of economic leverage. In this age, it's only the United States that's pushing power by muscle and military. Most other states, they're doing it in a much more soft way. Even China, with its expansionist ambitions, they're not pushing it by military might and all that. And most states that become superpowers, like the United States. The United States was an economic power before she became a military superpower. So I think I agree with Bo that Switzerland is actually a force.
If NATO didn't exist, if NATO wasn't there, who would protect Switzerland?
Can I ask Bo a question? Bo, you still there?
Yes, I'm there, sir.
Can Switzerland conquer Italy to its south? Can it conquer France to its west?
I think you're looking at it from a real myopic point of view, as far as like when you say conquer, I suppose you're speaking about conquering it by military. But
Yes.
Switzerland holds most of the world's. It can influence the world financially through the industries and all that. They're an economic superpower. Like, we can't discount the influence of the Swiss banking system and how they leverage it.
Okay.
What I'm going to say to Bo, and I hear where Bo's coming from here, because I think I would compare what Bo's saying in terms of what you were saying, Kev. Jews in the US are powerful economically. However, outside of economics, you won't be afraid of Jews in terms of their, let's say, military power, their muscle as a group of people, because they're a minority group. They won't be able to take over the society in terms of numbers and conquering. However, because of their economic power that they hold, that's where the influence lies. So maybe that's the difference. Or maybe it's just we have an old school view of your only superpower. If you have a military, you can conquer. You got numbers, size. But nowadays, it's more influence is not just about military. It's finances. It's certain trades. There's certain things where small countries have or small minorities have such a powerful influence over a majority because of things like economics.
And to your point, and to follow up on that, I don't think anyone would debate you on who is the most powerful group in America, ethnic group in America. You know what I mean? And they don't have the numbers. They aren't the most violent. They don't have the most, but they wield the most power politically and economically in America. And they make other people bend to their whims because of that economic power they have. Is the Jews. That's a perfect example, the Jews.
So China is considered a superpower because even though they aren't as rich as Switzerland, they have seats at the UN Security Council and all these other organizations that Switzerland isn't necessarily part of because, one, their population it's not large enough, and two, they don't have a standing military. I get what you're trying to say. You're saying that they have a lot of influence because of their finances and their GDP per capita, but that's not enough to be considered a superpower because NATO is Switzerland's protection. If NATO is
you can buy protection though. I mean, in the real world, you can buy protection. The nerdy Mark Zuckerberg isn't the toughest dude, but he has the money to hire an army. So
I guess, but that doesn't mean you're a superpower though.
Well, Bo, can I ask you a question? And it's just like, this is just an elementary question. Can Nigeria conquer most of the western part of West Africa just through military?
Brother, I think you have like this fanciful type idea of Nigeria. But if you look at Nigeria, right, and I'm open to one of the Nigerians disagreeing with me because I could be wrong. Nigeria is going backwards. It's not progressing, it's going backwards.
Get him out of here, Charles. Get him out of here.
Nigeria was once greater than it was 50 years ago. I mean, if you look at the Naira, brother, the Naira has devalued almost 40% in the last 2 years. You know what I mean? The Naira was once almost dollar for dollar with the dollar, was almost equivalent to a dollar. So, I mean, and I'm open to being wrong. I'm not saying that I'm necessarily right. If a Nigerian can correct me if I'm wrong. But it seems like they're going backwards. They're not progressing.
I gotta disagree with that because they have more millionaires and billionaires than any point in history. Their only problem is, like I said, the security problem.
Right now, Nigeria is the biggest economy in Africa. See, the thing is, we've made progress, and in some areas,
Charles, you're not seeing the chat. You're not seeing the chat.
Which one?
That whatever his name, that Donny guy,
Donny Brasco.
Get him out of here. Get him out of here, man.
Yeah, I'm gonna drop off, but yeah. Thank you very much, Steve Whitemans, Charles, Kevin, Bio, and Mike. I appreciate it. I'll catch you some of the time.
See you later.
All right, bro.
Okay, so Nigeria we've made some progress and in some areas, and we've gone back in some areas. It seemed that we're on the trajectory to a very, very good good future when our former president was there. The guy that this current president took over from, and is just messing everything up. So
good luck.
I do think that once we're able to get leadership right, that's just the problem. It's the leadership. It's the leadership. We have the biggest economy in Africa right now, but there are severe challenges. When our former president was leaving, the dollar to naira was about 150 to 200. Currently, it's pushing 400. It's pushing 400 right now, for something to a dollar. So you can see that most of the gains that were made, this guy is just messing things up. He's not concerned. He's not concerned about what's happening. And so if we can get the leadership right, Nigeria is on the track to being something really, really, really great. However, the issues we have in Nigeria, within Africa, and especially within the West African sphere, Nigeria still holds a lot of influence. Like I said earlier, a lot of manufacturing that goes on in that are being used in the West African sub-region, most of them are done in Nigeria. You get a lot of made in Nigerian goods in a lot of these African countries. So yeah, we've made some progress in some areas, and we've gone back in some other areas. Yeah.
Let me just add something to that, because, and it's more so directed to the other dude, because I see that you're a fan of Glenn Lowry, right? And you know Glenn Lowry, he's a big stickler on not necessarily the right answer, but how you come, the reasoning behind you get to that answer. But you said that Nigeria has the most millionaires, and I don't personally, and I feel like
I didn't say
I
that.
don't feel.
I said that.
Oh, you did it? Oh, I apologize. I must have misinterpreted you. I apologize.
I said that they have more millionaires and billionaires now than any point in their history.
Well, that can be said for any country, for the most part.
Right, but you said they were better off 50 years ago, but they're not.
But
50 years ago, they were emerging from colonialism.
But that's not an indicator of necessarily.
You're right,
the collective progress of a country, because more people.
You finished my sentence previously. I said that statement, and then I said, but they also have a security problem in the north.
I understand, and I'm gonna make it quick. You said that they have more millionaires and billionaires now, but that doesn't necessarily mean progress, because.
You didn't let me finish my statement.
Can you finish? Okay, then go ahead, brother.
My statement was that they have more millionaires and billionaires now than they do at any point than they did at any point in their history. And then I was gonna add, however, they have these problems today. I was gonna say inflation and the security problem in the north.
Okay, but to that, using that same logic, Russia has more millionaires and billionaires was created after the fall of the Soviet Union, not because it was a productive country, but due to the corruption and the oligarchs taking over certain industries or whatever. It created a boom of billionaires. So, but it didn't necessarily.
But that doesn't mean Russia's moving backwards. Your statement was that Nigeria is moving backwards, and I used that as proof that they're not.
I don't see it as being progress, proof that it isn't. But I don't want to hog up the mic. I'll let somebody else touch on it.
Bo, can I ask you a question? Why? And I noticed this with you in the. So, Bo, you're from what part of the U.S.? If you don't mind me asking.
Florida. That's why.
Okay. So
that's what I wanted to touch on with. Vince.
Okay, so I'm from the Midwest. I'm from Cleveland, actually. I noticed this with you and the Jamaican guy. It is probably because you guys actually live around South Americans. But I noticed that you guys have a sentiment for South Americans, and I noticed that you guys. I mean, granted, you may have been on the show. This is my third time coming over here. But why is it that when I and Vincent were preaching Nigerian superiority, you guys were in? Please forgive me. You're caping for groups of people who don't give a shit about you at all. Like you're caping for the Mexican.
Okay, so
yeah.
So is this an emotionally based response, or
Well,
just a factual based response?
Actually, believe it or not, this is more of an emotional question coming from my heart.
Okay,
because
so well,
I find that really ironic that two black men would sit up here and say they went to Mexico, they know Mexicans, and go ahead.
Because I don't have an emotional attachment to the question. I'm not answering it emotionally. I'm answering it from a logical point of view of what I see and what I see to be fact. So emotions has no part in my answer. So I don't necessarily have a sentiment where I would be biased towards Nigeria just because and overlook the facts of what I see in my everyday life or what's there in data and statistics.
Okay, so
if you're saying you're just saying that Nigeria is going to be just strictly based off of emotions, then that's one thing, and I can't argue you on that. I can't debate you about emotions or your sentiments.
Well, I guess okay. So I guess my question more or less is that, you know, to me it didn't seem like you were taking up for Nigeria or Africa as a whole. That's what it seems like. It seems like you're more or less taking up for South Americans.
Yeah, and also your analysis.
The thing is, the reason I gravitated towards this channel, what I liked about this channel, when I looked at the brother's catalog, I see he's a huge fan of Glenn Lowry, McWhorter, and a real logical frame of mind thinking. So I thought that emotions wouldn't be as high in these panels, right?
Yeah, and they're
so
not.
I'm not.
I'm just asking a question.
So if we're talking the reality of what I see and what's out there, you can't ask me why would I cape for a group. It has nothing to do with me caping for anybody. If anybody knows me, I'm ADOS and I'm highly critical of Mexicans and Latinos. So there isn't some affinity I have for Latinos over Nigerians. It's not. It's just the fact of the matter is that in the whole premise of what I said was you use the fact that Nigerians speak multiple languages to say that makes them more capable of being a superpower because Spanish people don't speak multiple languages. And my response to that was that Spanish people and Americans don't speak multiple languages because they tend to congregate within their own self-sufficient circles, where you can go to parts of Florida and not need to speak one lick of English. So Nigerians coming from abroad and speaking African languages, those languages don't translate well over here. So a Nigerian won't be able to exist within America and speak only his tribal languages. It would be highly unlikely unless they just didn't work or didn't do anything. But there's multiple places for Latino they can move to in America where they can go to school, work, well, maybe not school, but they can work, make a living, and all that within America without having to speak English. It has nothing to do with emotions or me liking Latinos or nothing like that.
Can I come in? One of the objectives of me setting up this channel is to have logical conversations where facts matter more than any other thing. Yes, we cannot discount the fact that we're humans and we're also emotional creatures. But I believe that emotions must take a backseat to facts where it really matters. Some of the things I've said about my country, it may hurt me emotionally, but I have to say it if it's the truth, if it's the facts of the matter. I have to say it the way it is because I don't believe that putting something soft so that it doesn't hurt the other person when it's contrary to the truth is going to help anybody at all. So I welcome every opinion. You can see that most of the time I just relax back and let the panel have a go at it. Let all the ideas come forth. That is the kind of discussion I want. That's the kind of discussion I like. I like ideas that are diverse. So I appreciate everybody's contributions, and everybody has made very, very wonderful, insightful positions today. I'm amazed at the level of critical thinking that has been going on in this panel today. So let's keep it at that. Let us keep it critical Let us keep it factual. Let us keep it logical. Yes, Kevin Samuels has done a wonderful job since he entered this panel. It's been a wonderful job. I do understand that he would have a certain bias for Nigeria because he's sort of he's from Nigerian extraction. That is very, very possible. It's allowed. Bo, you too may have a bias for ADOS because you have some ADOS extraction. That is also very, very good and welcome. But the facts must reign supreme, and that is what I think. So let's go ahead.
I have a question. Thank you, Charles. I have a question.
And with that being said, Latinos be the Mexicans. They have a heavy stronghold in multiple industries in America, where they are able to
landscaping.
Brother, more than lands, the construction industry, multiple states. If you go to California, if you go to Florida, Latinos pretty much run, especially the labor aspect of construction.
Do they run the aspect?
I gotta disagree with
okay,
that.
how about this?
I live in Cali, and I gotta disagree with that.
Okay, how about this, Bo? Let me ask you a question.
You live in Southern California or Northern California?
I live in North Cali.
Okay, well, you have to make the distinction between Northern and Southern California. I've been in both.
I was stationed in San Diego as well.
And you're saying that Latinos don't pretty much overrun the construction industry in San Diego?
They do, but that doesn't mean that they control multiple industries, like you said. They're usually just in like niche industries.
Okay, construction is a major industry, though, brother. That's a
company. The engineers that are Mexican that built all this shit. I'm not trying to be funny. I just really want to know this shit because I didn't know that. I don't live in Cali, but I have family in Victorville. I have family in Apple Valley. So yeah, I've been to Cali a lot of times. I do see a lot of Mexicans working, but they're doing landscaping shit or they're in the hotel.
Right, they're in like niche industries, pretty much.
Okay. First of all, right, you keep saying Mexican, right? I'm from Florida, so Mexicans don't they aren't as relevant in Florida as they are in California, right? But I use them, so I'm not as knowledgeable as about California. But
then why
I use them because I think anybody with common sense knows that Mexicans pretty much dominate in Southern California. I thought it went without saying, right? But in Florida,
how do they dominate? Okay, let's be honest. The Jews dominate California because the Jews make the most money out there. You could,
brother.
Relax. Okay.
Relax.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
But when you come to Florida and you look at the healthcare niche, you look at construction, you have companies like Mastech. You know what I mean? I forgot the healthcare company. He's a billionaire. He was one of Trump supporters. I forgot the name of the healthcare company, but these are all ran by Latinos, primarily Cubans. I'm talking about billion-dollar companies coming out of Florida that hire primarily Latinos. You know, if you go on their website to apply for a job for any type of managerial type position, they're gonna need you to speak Spanish. So by keep on saying Mexicans, I don't want to limit it to just Mexicans. I'm talking about the Hispanic and Latino population, period. But like Mastech, I know for a fact that's a billion-dollar company. You know what I mean? And it's another company called Related Group. There's so many multi-million-dollar, billion-dollar companies in Florida ran by Latinos. You know what I mean? That's why you see Cubans have so much political power in politics. I mean, I just don't see. And I could be wrong, but I don't see any. I just don't see how this is even up for debate, brother. Molina Healthcare, that's the name of it. Molina Healthcare, Health Group. They own all of the they own like a lot of the old age where your parents go when they get old in age, and a lot of the private clinics in Florida. This is almost like $1 billion company,
brother. When you think,
are you telling me that? Hold on. First of all, let's be honest.
Okay.
Are you telling me that, and then you discounted landscaping and all that, right? And that's another multi-million-dollar per year industry that these people control. Like, we can't discount that fact. But are you telling me that you feel as though Nigerians have a bigger industry? And I'm not discounting nothing from Nigerians, but when we're talking about industries and companies, like I don't think Nigeria are competing with Latinos as a whole on that level. Africans in general aren't competing with Latinos in America on the entrepreneurial business side of things. I mean, yes, they're educated and they have good jobs and they work in probably corporate America, but when it comes to being able to employ their people, they're light years behind Latinos as far as being able to employ their people and having any industry that they can really call their own in America. So even though you discounted the landscaping industry, people know that Latinos run that industry. Agriculture, you know what I mean? Like the packaging, the food, all that stuff in America, like they have a monopoly in some places on those industries. Whereas though they don't have to assimilate with anybody, and their people, when they come to America, automatically know that they have a job waiting for them and a place to go. Like I don't see that within.
Bo,
I'm just saying, if we're talking factually, if we're talking facts over feelings.
Do you have a Latino girlfriend or something? Why are you caping so hard for Latinos?
Brother, you keep on bringing. Brother, I just gave you facts.
You did, but I'm asking you.
Brother, can we? The reason I gravitated towards this panel was because I got tired of being involved in the emotional arguments in other panels. Brother.
I know, but listen.
What I'm saying is, if you can't debate the fact that what I said, that there's many multi-million-dollar and billion-dollar Latino companies. Like, don't try to turn it into ad hominems or
Hey, bro, I got a question.
Derail the conversation by asking me if I have a Latino girlfriend. Like,
bro, I got a quick question. You know how California has the most GDP in America? Do you know why? Do you know what industry generates the most? There's a reason why California is like this.
What are you saying? Silicon Valley?
Yes, exactly.
Okay,
now, if you and guess who rules Silicon Valley?
It's not Nigerians.
That wasn't my point, because your point was that.
You're moving the goalpost, brother, and we was just talking about one thing, right? So I'm not gonna discount the fact that Asians and Indians run Silicon Valley or whatever, right? So I mean, you're bringing into a different question, which isn't. So the question was.
But your statement was that they control. Your statement, I recall, was they control multiple industries, and that's false. They're usually only in, like you said, landscaping or anything that has to do with like construction work, which isn't multiple industries.
My point for
that's
saying
one niche industry that they're usually in. That's like us. That's like me saying, us African Americans, we control entertainment and sports, and that. You know what I'm saying?
No, brother,
that was a logical.
You're missing my point, brother. You missed my point.
What's your point?
The whole premise of what I said was he said I was caping for
No, I'm not talking
Latino.
about that. I'm talking about your previous
brother,
statement. I'm talking about your previous statement
Relax,
where you
brother.
said that they control
Relax.
multiple industries.
I'm finna unpack it for you why I came here. Where we came, how we got here was he said that I was caping for Mexicans and Latinos, right? And why didn't I choose Nigerian? And I said it has nothing to do with me caping for them. It's that I understand that Latinos control certain industries, no matter how big
industries,
or brother.
The same way everyone else controls certain industries.
Brother, can you relax, brother?
All right.
1 second. So I said their reasoning for not having to speak English or refusing to speak English is because by them controlling these industries in America, they have a streamlined workforce where they can get their people and integrate them into the workforce, get them jobs that they control. No matter how you feel about those specific industries, right? May it be the construction industry, it may not be as glamorous as the tech industry, may it be the landscaping industry, right? These people are able to come here, make a living, put their kids through school, to go on to be whatever, and never have to integrate or assimilate into the outside communities and learn the language because they have a stronghold in those industries, right? That was the reason for me bringing up them controlling industry. It wasn't to compare Latinos Latinos influence in Silicon Valley or on other industries? Yes. The Indians and Asians control or dominate in one spot. And it's debatable of who actually controls it because they're the workforce, but that's debatable. But that wasn't the question though. So I mean, it's as if we're moving the goalposts to prove a point.
Let's be completely honest.
So initially, your point was that you were saying that Mexico was economically, or just in general, moving forward while Nigeria was moving backwards, and we refuted your statement by pretty much saying why that was false, and then I guess he called you out for caping, etc.
Okay,
But
brother. Okay,
but
brother.
I get what you're trying to say, that we're supposed to not be biased, but you have to look at it from my point of view. Like for one, Nigeria's GDP is larger than Mexico. Nigeria in general is more of industrial. The only problem with Nigeria is that it's mismanaged. Like I said, the security problems in the north, and corruption and inflation. And once they fix those, they 100% will be leaps and bounds ahead of Mexico.
Brother, I would much rather pass the question on because I can't win. I can't win if it's gonna just be, I gave you data. I gave you my reasoning.
No, that's the fact. If you look at GDP, like Nigeria has a higher GDP than Mexico.
Well, actually, just to bring the fact, say this.
Not even worth saying anything.
Mexico does have higher GDP.
Yeah, Mexico has a higher GDP. Yeah,
it does.
Really?
Yeah, Mexico's GDP is 2 point something times higher than Nigeria.
Are you serious?
Yeah, both correct. Yep, those are facts.
Pathetic.
Yeah, those are facts. But then again, I have to stress this: Nigeria is a new country. Mexico is not a new country. Mexico is what, hundreds of years old, whereas Nigeria is 60 years old. I just want to point that out, and not to mention Nigeria had a military dictatorship up until the 80s. So let's keep it real.
So, like I just said, we cannot always agree on all the points, but it is only fair that every point is heard. So we agree to disagree, and then we'll move on. We'll talk about other things. So I would like us to wrap up the conversation in the next 8 minutes because I have to catch some sleep. I have work tomorrow. I have to catch some sleep. But I really appreciate you guys for coming. It's been a wonderful conversation, and I want us to do this again. Maybe we can have a part 2, as many parts of this, and talk about other stuff as well. Talk about African stuff and how we can move the black race forward wherever they are in the world, whether they be in Africa, in the Caribbean, or they be in the US. We have to find a way to move ourselves forward. So let's go on White Matters. Then we'll go to Kevin Incels, Bo, Mike. Then we'll be done. So let's go.
I kind of wanted to sort of finish with a point, and it's kind of an analogy. And I know a lot of Americans are on this panel, so you probably might relate to it. In terms of moving the needle forward, are we doing it in the right way? I'm going to use a basketball analogy. So you have LeBron James, who's like an all-rounder in like majority in terms of his strengths. Or you have a Steph Curry, who's really a three-point shooter. But Steph Curry revolutionized basketball more than LeBron James has. So even though LeBron James is a better basketball player, no one will disagree with that, Steph Curry has more of an impact on the game. Is that the difference between what we need to do going forward? Instead of being engineers, doctors, lawyers, etc., do we need to focus on one thing that we revolutionized the world on? If that makes sense. I'll hand it over.
Okay.
But just using my example. Oh, I apologize.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Just using the example that I just used, we've seen how the Latinos and Hispanics were able to gain influence in America, not by necessarily their academic prowess, but by controlling certain industries, starting off with the agriculture, being the backbone of, on any farm, most farmland you see in America, they're the dominant workforce and they control it to the point now where they own a lot of farms and they control it. So they can almost cripple the U.S. economy and they did at one time if you look back on the farmer strike and how the Mexicans got a lot of their rights in America, but construction, you know what I mean? They can stop a construction project, you know what I mean? So they have more influence in America than Nigerians, and not through academic prowess, but just by being able to exert influence in certain key industries. If that answers your question. So I think we can't discount the entrepreneurial aspect of power.
No, I definitely see your viewpoint. I definitely see your viewpoint. I think it's the other two on the panel a bit have a different viewpoint, but I'll shut up now and let them speak.
Oh, you guys are talking to me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I respect what Bo is saying. I respect where he's coming from. But I am a Black nationalist. I believe in African superiority. I believe that Black people should control Africa, period, and a lot of the world. Though Bo is correct in a lot of things that he's saying, I just think that we should always stay on code when talking about Nigeria or talking about any other industrialized African nation state. And that's just my opinion. You know, I respect Bo's opinion. I respect everybody's opinion. But I believe that Nigeria is going to be a superpower within the next 75 years. I believe that Nigerian men should start, marrying Sudanese women. And I think we should just take over the planet. And that's what I wholeheartedly believe. So that's just my sentiment.
Great.
Yeah, that's what I believe.
Mike.
Bo said, I believe I can fly. I can fly. I'm about to pass out.
Glenn Lowry would be highly disappointed with you right now. Highly disappointed with you.
How would Glenn Lowry be disappointed with me? I'm just saying what I believe about myself, sir. Sir, are you married to a Venezuelan woman? Keep it real.
Nah, actually, no, I'm not.
Okay.
I just seen the heavy influence of Glenn Lowry on the brothers in a lot of his videos. So I thought the conversation would be different. But because if you know about Glenn Lowry, you know a lot of times he doesn't even debate a lot of times certain issues. He gives more pushback on how you come to those conclusions. And I mean, you would fail miserably in the Glenn Lowry.
Well, I mean, here goes the thing, bro. I'm not trying to debate. Like I said, I'm open-minded. I respect everybody's opinions, and especially if you came to my live streams and my channel. You know, we
this your channel name, Kevin and Sales? That's the name of your channel?
That's the name of my channel. Yeah. So we talk about a lot of things. Is that it's more of an entertainment type channel too.
Right.
So in defense of Kevin Sales, I've seen his channel and I've talked to him on other panels, and the energy is, I think maybe this is just a different type of topic, which is just maybe a different energy, but to back him up, no. He is a free thinker for definite, and he's really relatively cool. So in Kevin's defense, Bo. So
thank you.
Right.
Yes,
I gotta check you out.
Absolutely.
Was that you on the discussion? Because I got familiar with the channel through the ADOS American discussion about speaking for us, and you can speak about us, but not for us. Was that you, the ADOS brother, that he was debating on now?
No, that wasn't me. Nope.
Oh, okay.
No, that wasn't him. That was someone else. Black Skin is amazing.
I really agree with that conversation. I like that conversation.
Yeah, that guy's kind of.
Well, you will like I'll say sorry to cut your mic, but Bo, you will like the content on his channel, so don't be dismayed at all. You will like the content on his channel, so
right.
Yeah, his channel's kind of toxic, honestly. I'm
gonna tell you, because that's one of the things that makes it impossible for me to kind of like have conversation in Pan-African spaces, because so much of the conversation is emotionally based, and it's like you can't really make any progress in an emotionally charged conversation. I mean, it can't.
I got a question.
Because we got to get back to the facts. And
so you follow Black Skin is Amazing?
No, I found him through through Charles'
Do
channel.
you know that in one of his videos
I don't know
he said-
anything about the brother, honestly. I don't know
he said
anything
that
about the other
Nigeria
brother.
had to be colonized.
Brother, that's an issue for another day. That's a topic for another discussion. I can't really.
You followed the guy though, like just because someone is...
I don't follow him, brother. I said I enjoyed the discussion. I didn't say I agreed with Charles or I agree with anybody, but I like the discussion. I like how I'm a Glenn Lowry fan personally, right? And I like the mechanics of how you come to a conclusion. I don't necessarily like always just care whether or not somebody's right or wrong, but I like the reasoning behind getting to those answers. That really makes the difference to me. So we can agree to disagree, and if you come to the conclusion logically, then we'll just agree to disagree. But I mean, when we say things like, well, I'm a black nationalist, so I believe this and I believe that, it's like I can't really, it's like, what can I say? Like, I believe I can fly. Like, what does that mean?
Do you believe, okay, let me ask you a question, Bo. Do you believe in black nationalism? How about that?
No, I don't like none of those groups because it kind of like pigeonholes your thought process.
Okay.
So I try not to like really subscribe to any of those blackity black type ideologies, just so I don't get pigeonholed and over certain facts of the matter. Like I really want to see Charles. Charles had a lot of discussions that I want to hear. Like I seen his reasoning behind the welfare state and different things like that. You know what I mean? And I like how he come to his conclusion. I don't necessarily agree with all of them. His affirmative action discussion he had. I binged this other video. I came across. I binge watched the video. Interesting to see how he came to some of those his thought process and his understanding. Because even though I don't necessarily agree with him, he has a solid foundation on his interpretation of a lot of the issues, whether I agree with him or not. But when it comes to black nationalism, Pan-Africanism, it's like almost impossible to really have a discussion if everything is just going to be about, well, I think, well, I believe it because I'm a black and I believe black people should. It's like, bro, like we got to get past that.
Yeah,
Kev, you sound like you said you're a black nationalist, but is that I don't know, like a picture of a Sudanese woman on your thumbnail? Is that me or?
I'm sorry. You asked me what again, sir?
The picture, the thumbnail, that woman in the thumbnail, that doesn't look like a Sudanese woman to me.
No, this is a mulatto Negro mixed white woman. She's a model that I know. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I hang with very beautiful women. However, I promote dark-skinned women. I made videos about dark-skinned women. This is just a photo that I've always had on my avatar. But yeah, I have plenty of photos of dark-skinned women. But no, she's a mixed Negro.
All right, just from the thumbnail, she didn't even look like she was like mixed. She looked like, for me, just a Caucasian woman. That's the reason.
No. She's
right,
her mother's white, her father's black, but
okay,
she's a mulatto Negro woman. Yeah.
All right.
mixed Negro.
Mixed Negro. I've not heard that one before, but cool.
Yeah, mixed Negro. Yeah, mixed Negro. Yeah.
All right.
So, Mike, let's hear from you.
Say what?
Let's hear from you.
I don't got anything to say right now.
Okay, so let me just wrap up.
Actually, I do just got something to say. Can you cut out the part where I turn my cam on real quick?
Yeah, I will. I'll do that.
I appreciate it.
Do that. Yeah. So I want to thank you guys for coming. I really appreciate the discussion, the conversation. Like I said earlier, I like diversity of thoughts. The reason why I always brought in Eidos to my panel, to my discussion, the other guy, Black Skin is amazing, is because I know his positions are vastly different from mine. So I want to sharpen my reasoning skills. I want to test my ideas against, because it's easy to be in an echo chamber and just hear your own voice and you think you're right. And then when you're challenged, you see that you fall flat because there was really no foundation. You've never challenged yourself. So I also believe in facts over feelings. I believe that facts should be supreme. We're humans, we're going to have feelings, we're going to have our biases, but facts would be supreme. I like using this analogy and say that in an intellectual discussion such as this, in an intellectual discussion, I am going to stay more with the facts than my own filial, how will I put it, my own biases as a human being. But maybe when it comes to real life, I can. When it comes to an issue of life and death, definitely I'll take the side of my brother. But when we're talking about an intellectual discussion, I have to stick with the facts. And if the facts are not with my brother, I'm not going to take his side on that discussion. But in real life, if it gets to a point where there's a physical altercation, I don't care how wrong my brother is, I'm going to take his side at first, at least just to preserve his life. So that is my philosophy. My philosophy is bringing in thought-provoking conversations. We need to challenge ourselves as African men, as Black men. We need to think critically. We need to x-ray every belief, every thought, and every idea. We need to x-ray them properly to make sure that we are on the right path and on the right track. So Bo and Kevin and Sales, you guys disagreed on some points, but don't take it personal. It's
Oh
just a
no,
difference of opinion.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So it's
nothing
just a
personal.
difference of opinion. And I would want both of you to come back to in fact, I want us all to come back to the panel when next I go live so that we can have more interesting conversations, just like the one we've had today. So thank you very, very much for this conversation. I really enjoyed it, and God bless.
Thank you.
Have a good one. Thank you very
Thanks
much.
for having us on. Thanks, everyone. See you later.
All right.
All right.